All right, I think we will go ahead and get today's program started. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. On behalf of the University of South Carolina's Alumni Association, I'd like to welcome you all to the alumni family. My name is Nicolette Macklin, and I'm a 2013 graduate of the Dollar Moore School of Business. I'm originally from South Carolina, but I currently live in Munich, Germany, working on behalf of the state of South Carolina. And I also serve as the chair-elect for the Young Alumni Council. So we're super glad that you all chose to join us today. And the purpose of this event is to provide you with a little bit of information that will help you transition from students to alumni. We have several alumni joining us today to share ways to stay engaged after graduation, tips on managing your finances, and virtual job searching tactics. There will be a 5-minute break after our panel discussion, as well as after the financial management session. Also, if you need to leave at any time and come back, you can use the same link throughout the entire program. So as I mentioned, I serve as the chair-elect for the Young Alumni Council, and we are a volunteer group that's a part of the Alumni Association, and our goal is to help connect recent graduates with other young alumni in their area to help advance their careers and their passions. So right now you can join many of our virtual events, such as our virtual career days, cooking classes, and wine tastings, just to name a few. But we also have 3 other councils under the Alumni Association as well. So we have the Black Alumni Council, the Veterans Alumni Council, and our newly formed LGBTQ Alumni Council. So be on the lookout for their events as well, should you be interested. So again, today is just about connecting you with some resources to help keep you engaged. And being an active part of the Gamecock family doesn't end when you graduate. So if anything, it gets even better because you have the chance to interact with people all around the world with different levels of professional experience, different backgrounds, and you can take part of a bigger community. So for me, the Alumni Network has played a huge role in my professional life. So prior to my current work position, I had no idea that my job even existed until I reconnected with another Gamecock that told me about their career path. And really, I am forever grateful for that reconnection because now I absolutely love what I do for work. And I think that's the beauty of the network. It can open doors to opportunities that you may not have been aware of. And even aside from professional resources, the network can prove to be beneficial on a personal level as well. So I know many fellow Gamecocks that are just an absolute asset when it comes to learning how to buy a house or helping you buy a house or someone that can help get your finances together. Not to mention for myself, since I live in Germany, I've met a few Gamecocks that live abroad that have been able to provide me with some tips to help out with my move here. So for me, this is why I choose to remain involved even while living abroad, because being an active part of the network has provided me with access to information and resources that other Gamecocks have been willing to share. So, you know, it's also very exciting to be able to offer what I've learned through my experiences and return to those soon to be in my position, such as you all possibly. So the opportunities for collaboration within the network are readily available and super easy because you already have something in common with everyone that you're connecting with, the university. But keep in mind that when it comes to being actively engaged, you really get in what you put out. So to get started with building your network, my first suggestion for you is to see if there is a Gamecock club in your area. So we have Gamecocks all across the world, and because of that, there are more than 45 local clubs to help bring together everyone in those areas. So these clubs put on different events throughout the year, like game viewing parties, happy hours, and networking events. So even if you are moving to a new city after graduation where you don't know anyone, you don't have any family, this could be an opportunity for you to easily find others that have similar interests or similar paths. So today, I invite you all to officially join the Alumni Association, and I encourage you to use the network for support as you transition, because there are definitely going to be some times when you think to yourself, like, man, I wish I knew that before I graduated. And there really are so many mentors available within the alumni network that can help guide you through those moments. There are several different options when it comes to placing your membership, and there's even a special rate for new graduates. So some of the benefits, aside from just the social events that we post to help you meet new people, include potential savings on continuing education programs, access to free career services, and then we also have a discount program for just a plethora of restaurants and different stores that pretty much everyone could take advantage of. So if you want more information, you can always reach out to us directly, or you can go online to UofSCalumni.org and learn about the different options for placing membership. So we look forward to seeing you at our future events. Thank you again for your time, and welcome to the alumni family. Go Cox.
Well, thank you so much, Nicolette, for that welcome. And I would just like to say to everyone, again, welcome to the Future Alumni Conference. My name is Katie Hall, and today I'm going to be moderating our alumni panel and introducing our speakers. So I am currently a senior at UofSC studying marketing and entrepreneurship, and currently serve as the president of Garnet Circle. Garnet Circle governs the Student Alumni Association, or SAA. SAA serves to build leadership through Garnet Circle, engage students through dynamic events, and prepare our graduates for all of their careers. SAA strives to serve as a community for all students who walk through the gates of South Carolina. And because SAA and Garnet Circle is inclusive to all majors and colleges, I've had the opportunity to meet students pursuing a variety of different majors and careers, and I think it's important for students to get involved with their alumni association now to invest in themselves for their future and the future of the university. So on that note, I would like to introduce our alumni panelists. So first we have Chanel Singletary with the Black Alumni Council. We have Drew Newton with the LGBTQ+ Alumni Council. We have Keith June with the Veterans Alumni Council. We have Brooks Hearn with the Young Alumni Council. We have Billy Quinlan with the Columbia Gamecocks. And we have Sam Johnson with the UofSC Alumni Association Board of Governors. So welcome to all of our panelists. We're so happy that you're here. I'm going to kick off our questions, and we can just go in that order. If you need a reminder of who you go after, I'll let you know, but just start off by introducing yourself, your profession, your education background, your graduation year, and just any other information you would like all of us to know. So Chanel, you can kick us off.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chanel Singletary, and I graduated in the class of 2004 at the University of South Carolina. I am currently the Director of Student Activities at Columbia College. It's like my first week in my new position, so I'm learning a lot. My previous role was in the University of South Carolina's Office of College Admission Communications. I was the academic advisor there. So I have a really interesting journey. After I graduated from the University of South Carolina in 2004, I ended up going to the rival school, Clemson University, and got my master's in school counseling in 2007. And then I transferred back to Columbia and stayed since then. And I got my second master's in Columbia College, my master's in higher education administration in 2015. So during those times, I was trying to figure out my purpose. I worked in corporate America with Bank of America as a teller. I also did customer service at Pier 1 Imports. I also worked in state government. So I worked at the South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce, as well as South Carolina Department of Social Sciences. So from those social service, from those experiences, it taught me how to have resilience, working with different types of people, all walks of life, and just being their advocate. So I was at the impression when I graduated from university in 2004 that I was going to get my dream job. I was going to make lots of money. But when you make plans, sometimes God laughs. So from that, life has really redirected me to my purpose of serving students. So I tell students, current and former students, like, don't get discouraged if you don't find your dream job when you graduate. Live, find your purpose, meet all kinds of people, connect, and then your purpose will find you.
Thank you, Chanel. Next, could we have Drew?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Drew Newton, and I am a graduate of the graduate school actually in 2012 from the Master's in Higher Education and Student Affairs. And actually, I used to work with Chanel in advising at USC, which is awesome. So I'm joining you today from the campus of Midlands Technical College, where I serve as the Director of Academic and Career Advising at MTC. Lots of partnership between MTC and USC. MTC is one of the largest transfer feeders to the University of South Carolina, Columbia. I'm originally from Virginia. My undergrad is actually from James Madison University. And after undergrad, I was a middle school English teacher. And middle school English teachers and college freshmen have a lot in common, I can tell you that. And I loved teaching, but ultimately decided that I didn't really want to spend all my time on standardized testing, but I wanted to stay in education. And when honestly, I had no idea you could make a career beyond being a professor at a college or university. It just didn't even cross my mind that people work at the school. I don't know why it never did. And when I learned more about the profession of being in student services and higher ed, I asked, what's the school you should go to? And the clear answer from everyone is the University of South Carolina. And I remember that when I came for my visit to interview for graduate assistantships, that was really clear. The energy and the enthusiasm from Gamecocks was awesome. I also had not been to a significant football school, so I was pretty wrapped up in all things SEC, which was pretty cool. And I'm really proud of the university for creating the LGBTQ plus affinity group, because I remember when I started my graduate assistantship, which was with the Safe Zone Ally program. That Safe Zone was a small program. There really was no LGBT programs office. And now USC has an LGBT programs office, strong student organizations. And I think that this affinity group goes even further in making sure that we represent the great diversity of our Gamecocks, but we also make sure that those voices are there and are part of the conversation. So I give kudos to Carolina, and I'm really proud to be with you today. So thanks for the opportunity. Go Cox.
Thank you so much, Drew. It's exciting too. I know that the LGBTQ plus Alumni Council is new, and so it's exciting, and we're so glad that you are here to join us. Next, we'll have Keith.
Yeah, hey, good morning, everybody, and go Gamecocks. And I am Keith June. I'm a 30-year Army veteran, and I'm the chair of the Veterans Alumni Council. The Veterans Alumni Council is a relatively new affinity group. It's been around for about 5 years. But obviously, we work with veterans. We've got any number of challenges with organizing the veterans community, but we're here to help veterans at the University of South Carolina. Before I get too far, just want to thank the Alumni Association and for the invitation today. I am truly honored to be here. Also want to thank Katie and Nicolette. A shout out to Nicolette. I spent 6 years in Germany. I did 8 Oktoberfests in 6 years, so that's my claim to fame. But really, I'm really honored to be an alumni of the University of South Carolina. I graduated in 1986, went straight into the Army, and I did a couple of tours in Germany. I served in a couple of tours in Iraq, a couple of tours in Afghanistan, in the Pentagon. So again, 30 years in the Army, but truly a great career. And the university really set me up well for success in so many ways. The University of South Carolina has lots of connections to the military. Lots of graduates. And by the way, veterans are not just officers, of course. It's anybody that served. Over my time at with the Veterans Alumni Council, we have recognized veterans from the Second World War, from the Korean War. We had a Veterans Forum, Veterans Alumni Council Forum a couple of weeks ago, and we had the director of the Vietnam Memorial Fund, which sustains the wall, who is, by the way, a graduate of the University of South Carolina. So there are lots of connections with veterans from the University of South Carolina. So we work to ensure that we serve veterans to ensure that they are aware of, one, how their benefits, be they benefits from the Veterans Administration, from the federal government, from the state of South Carolina, and from the university. And it really is challenging in lots of ways, because I think veterans a lot of times are not aware of what benefits they have, how they use those benefits, timelines, and some benefits like the GI Bill can be used by their families as well. So we really, it's a continuing challenge to ensure that we find out who the veterans are and we connect with the veterans community. We are in the process of doing several things. As you might imagine, this is a really big week for us with Veterans Day on Wednesday. This coming Saturday is a game that's done to honor veterans. So we just did a video a couple of days ago that'll be shown at the game. We have a veterans a run. We normally do that on the Saturday, or actually on the Sunday after the game. This year, because of the COVID crisis, we weren't able to do that. But it's a virtual run. And we also have that we just got endowed. We have a Salute to Service scholarship that again was just endowed, and we're working to get more funding for that as well. So I have thoroughly enjoyed my time with the Veterans Alumni Council, and I so enjoy being a alumni at the University of South Carolina. So I look forward to the forum today and look forward to the opportunity to engage with everybody, not just veterans, but especially veterans. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Keith. And we're incredibly grateful for your service as well. Brooks, would you like to share next?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brooks Hearn. I am representing the Young Alumni Council. Today, I'm the Charleston area representative on the council, and I am currently the Director of Advancement at Pinewood Preparatory School outside Charleston, South Carolina. And just want to give y'all a little background. So I like to tell people, I went to a very South Carolina-oriented family. I mean, I can't think of a relative that did not graduate from the university. But, I mean, I was even baby cocky when I was 2. No lie, at the games. Cocky pulled me around in a wagon. So it was awesome on the sidelines. But that being said, my path to the university, honestly, was my own. And I looked at other schools. I checked out all of my options. But when the opportunity arose for me to attend the Honors College at South Carolina and also to be a recipient of the Alumni Association Scholarship, that was a done deal. My decision was made, and I have never looked back. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. So I graduated in 2007 with a degree in public relations, and then in 2009 with a master's in public administration, both from the university, and have had a phenomenal experience still applying what I've learned in both of those programs. And honestly, I'll say that I've kind of worked in the public sector and the private sector, but there isn't a day that goes by that I don't apply the knowledge that I learned in those classes in my coursework in my day-to-day career. I typically, handle all of the communications needs, events, any type of community relations, marketing. And I truly believe that our School of Journalism and Mass Communications is phenomenal and really prepared me for what I do. And so, again, I am just grateful for this opportunity. I encourage everyone to get involved for sure. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn or drop me an email, however you want to reach out if you have any questions. And I look forward to sharing with y'all today. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Brooks. We're so happy to have you too. Next, Billy.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. And thank you all for having me this morning. My name is Billy Quinlan, and I'm here as the chair for the Columbia Gamecocks, which Nicolette alluded to in her intro. There are a number of local city or region-based clubs across the country. I'm the chair of our Columbia-based one right here in our backyard. So a little bit of background in my experience. I'm a 2019 graduate from UofSC with, like Brooks, with my Master in Public Administration. And that has led me over here to work. I'm coming to you live from the State House grounds over here. I work in the state's executive budget office, where my primary duty is supporting a group of, I've got 23 state agencies on all things budget, finance related. It's actually very exciting. Those of you that don't like numbers, it is still interesting. Don't worry, I'll be happy to share more about that. But it's really exciting to be here today and tell you more about being engaged, looking at it specifically from the local clubs and how those can be a resource for you no matter where you go after you graduate or wherever you end up after that. So it's great to be here this morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Billy. And last, we'll have Sam introduce himself.
Sure. First of all, it's great to be with everyone this morning and see some friends on the panel. And congrats, Chanel, on going to Columbia College. I've got some great koalas in my family. So USC gave me an amazing experience in undergrad. I was very active in the community. I'm born and raised here in Columbia, so went to Spring Valley High School. I actually went to Midlands Tech and then transferred over to USC. And during my time at USC, which was a little known fact, a lot of people don't know that, but during my time at USC, I was very involved in the community, involved in politics and that sort of thing here in Columbia. And just so happened that like Billy, I was over at the State House quite often. And then I got involved in some of the municipal politics here in Columbia and helped run Mayor Benjamin's campaign in 2010, which was the year I graduated. And went on to become his chief of staff. And of course, none of those connections would have happened and my involvement wouldn't have been available or an opportunity if I hadn't gone to the University of South Carolina. And so I was his chief of staff for about 6 years and then decided to go back to law school at Carolina. Unlike Chanel, I'm not a traitor. I didn't go to Clemson and get a master's degree. And I had to mess with it a little bit. But I do have both my undergrad and law school degrees are from Carolina, and now I'm at Next and Pruitt Law Firm, where I advise consultants on economic development and policy matters. So glad to be with you guys this morning, and certainly always happy to see fellow Gamecocks.
Thank you so much, Sam. So our next question is going to be, tell us about your involvement with your specific alumni council, what you guys do, how you personally got involved, maybe some events, and how like your group engages with your affinity group. So, and Chanel, you can start us off again.
How I got involved with the UofSC Black Alumni Council. Back in 2015, a good friend of mine, Hassan S. Rob, probably a lot of y'all probably know Hassan. He invited me to a couple of Black Alumni Council events, like viewing watch parties, community service events. And I started going because Hassan was a really good friend of mine. So I was all about supporting my friends. And for me being involved and going to events, he was like, Chanel, have you thought about applying for the Black Alumni Council? And I was like, no. He's like, I think you should apply for it. I'm like, I'll think about it and let you know. So when the opportunity came for me to apply in 2016, I took advantage of it, and that's how I got involved. Officially, August 2016, served in various committees, the Alumni Engagement Committee, Student Engagement Committee, and then I was asked to be co-chair of Black Alumni Council back in 2019. I was kind of nervous because like, okay, it's like my first official leadership role, and also transitioned a lot of our members. When I first got involved in 2016, all of the members were in Columbia. And then we transitioned. Most of our board members are living in Charlotte, Greenville. We have 2 at-large seats in Charleston. So I said, okay, I'm going to cater to the board that doesn't live in Columbia. So it's going to be a challenge, but I was very excited. I took the opportunity, and then I transitioned to chair July of 2020. It has been a really great experience. I am very fortunate to be in the council. I have really great board members that's very passionate about UofSC, passionate about alumni engagement, passionate about being an advocate for students, and even being a resource for faculty and staff. We have been very involved during the pandemic. We did a couple events. We did the Miles for the Alma Mater Challenge back in August in honor for Black Philanthropy Month. So we have collected over 1,500 miles with mathematical $1,500 to go towards our Receive Greener Scholarship. That is our scholarship where we help an incoming first-year student to attend University of South Carolina. Our goal is to raise $20,000 so we can fund 2 additional scholars to attend university instead of 1. So that's our big push, just getting people to donate to our scholarship. Homecoming was a challenge because we used to the face-to-face tailgate. So we had to transition to the virtual setting and did our Richard T. Greener Black Excellence Sprint, which was highly received. And we also did after party with DJ Gooch, who is also our alum. And that was a really good turnout. We had 75 participants, and we also had some donations to the scholarship and even a match. Somebody matched to a $500. So that was really rewarding. We are in the process of doing our second Black Leadership Series sometime in December with our new VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Mr. Julian Williams. Our first series was back in September 14th with our new provost, William F. Tate. So we're going to do a series of Black leadership with the provost, VP Williams. We also going to do the new communications and also possibly Don Staley. We are in the process of doing future series. As far as student engagement, we are doing a couple events. We're working closely with the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs right now. So we're doing a joint event sometime around November 17th. It's going to be Zoom. And hopefully COVID will slow down around the spring. We can hopefully do some face-to-face events. Our signature event, typically around Black History Month, is called Building the Future, where alumni get to connect with current students, and it's like a panel, small group discussion where students ask us how was our experience was at USC, and just connecting that mentor-mentee relationship. So I hope we're able to do that in person in the spring. If not, we may have to do a virtual setting. But once again, I'm very blessed to be in the council. I just did start attending events and then end up being in a leadership capacity. I'm very grateful for my board. They know they like my cheerleaders, and I was like, sometimes I have a challenge with Chanel, you got this, you got your team. We have a motto where the best is yet to come, and we always got your back, will BAC. So we use our theme, we always got your back. We do have each other back. If a member going through a challenge or need help with something, we all pitch in to support. So I'm very grateful, and I hope that does, people outside will see the council flourishing and being visible, because we really want to be an advocate for the university.
So, Katie, I will admit that my answer is so much shorter because we really haven't even fully begun yet. The LGBTQ plus affinity group really has, at this point, some members, and I serve as chair, and our chair-elect is Joe Wright, who is a former student body president at USC, and he is also actually part of the class of 2012, but for undergrad from the Moore School of Business. So we are still actually in the phase of forming our council, and then from there, we'll get to work on recruiting individuals to be part of our organization, start some opportunities for people to connect. I do know that both Joe and I have our eyes on mentorship as much as possible, especially helping students who are considering Carolina understand that the UofSC is a very inclusive, welcoming place to be, and that you can find your fit in the program of study that you choose, but you can also find the home that supports you and your growth and development at Carolina. I know that is something that is a significant priority for Joe and I. So really right now, what I would say is, if you've got friends and colleagues that you think would be great members of our group, recruit them. You'll find that social media, as well as the alumni newsletter this week, provided the link where you can apply to be part of our group, and we're really in the early stages. So I hope that we can come back to you next year and be able to share all of the great things that Chanel just shared, because I'm inspired by the group activities from my colleagues. So we're new, but we're happy to be here.
Yeah, just Keith again. And just, I didn't say it during my intro, but I actually live in Arlington, Virginia. So I'm just across the river from Washington, D.C. And we have an incredibly active Gamecock club here. In fact, for watch parties, if you don't get there early, you're not going to get a seat. And I've lived in this area in and around for about 30 years. And we have had events all over the D.C. region, in Washington, D.C., and in Northern Virginia. I'm not sure exactly. I can't remember exactly how I got connected to the Veterans Alumni Council. I think I was reading something that came from the university and saw that they had created this group and thought that might be something I would be interested in doing. So, I asked to be part of the board and was accepted. And it has just been an amazing experience. I mean, just really just an incredible experience for lots of reasons. One, we have lots of veterans, relatively young veterans as a result of service in Iraq and Afghanistan and around the world. So we have lots of young veterans, lots of veterans in general, and again, lots of veterans connected to the University of South Carolina. We have a great board, and I think our board reflects the veterans community. Last year's chair, John, can't recall his last name, but he's a Vietnam veteran. I'm a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, and Lisa Yanity, who is the chair-elect, is a Afghanistan veteran. And by the way, veteran does not mean that you served in combat or you deployed. So it is very reflective of the veterans community. We have just done a ton of things. Again, we have the Salute the Service scholarship that was recently endowed that we're adding to. This again is a big week where we do a Veterans 5K. We normally do that on the Sunday after Veterans Day. Again, we're doing that virtually this year. But virtual is good in lots of ways because we can even get more people to do the run. Last year, as a side note, we were able to get some Marine drill instructors. So the hill that's near the university, I can't remember if it's Sumter Street. Can't remember. I think it was that hill. But the DIs were yelling at people. Quite an experience. So let me know if you want to be a part of that next year. We can definitely sign you up. And also one thing we're really excited about, in fact, on Wednesday, we're going to have a ceremony to open the new Veterans Center there at the University of South Carolina. That's something that we've worked on for a couple of years, to have one place where veterans can go for information about their benefits or what the university provides or things like that. And we're going to have a ceremony to recognize that on Wednesday. Other things that we've worked on is having veterans be able to use their military training for college credits. We've worked on that. Every year, in fact, twice a year, in the fall and in the spring, we recognize military veteran graduates. That's ROTC and someone who is a veteran but may not have been in a commissioning program or anything like that. But we recognize them with coins and cords. We normally do a service, an actual service with them. We weren't able to do that this past year, but we are going to do that when time allots. We have sent those veterans their coins and cords. We've also established a mentor link to link veterans up with mentors in the business community. And at every opportunity, we recognize veterans at basketball games, at football games, women's basketball and men's basketball, at baseball games. Again, last year we had a World War II veteran at a baseball game. And I just want to thank the other affinity groups. And something that still gives me chills is a couple of months ago with the horrible murder of George Floyd. And I know the Black alumni group really took the lead in that. And we were asked in the veterans community, our stance, and we came up with a motto: we serve together and we stand together. And that gives me chills to think about that and just how supportive the veterans community is of other affinity groups and of the university. So thank you.
So I had always looked forward to being able to attend alumni events after graduation, and took part in the journalism event around homecoming and the honors college events, and really found out that the affinity groups, affinity councils, were an option. I was not aware, and just put in an application when the Charleston seat opened up for Young Alumni Council. So glad I did that. I've been a member since 2018 and have really enjoyed my experience. You may be aware that we are the group that's historically put on the fall band party for the past few years. Obviously that was off the table this year. And like Nicolette mentioned in her introduction, we've taken many of our Young Alumni events online. And I think many of those have been successful and just enriching to take part in. I've learned some things along the way. I did enjoy the wine tasting as well. It was very that was an excellent opportunity. And I know we're all thinking about that on Friday, but definitely recommend anybody with any level of interest in getting involved. And again, like I said before, it does cement your ties to the university. It keeps you connected. And with my involvement specifically, I am part of the marketing communications subcommittee on the Young Alumni Council, and a lot of that entails content creation. So I've been able to write a few articles for the Alumni Association newsletter and post it on the website, and have really enjoyed getting to put that to use. I love writing, and it's great to be able to share with our fellow alumni. And so that's really been my involvement, and I look forward to finishing out this year and seeing where my involvement goes from there.
Yeah, so to move from kind of the affinity council approach to the club specific side of things, like I said, I'm with the Columbia Gamecocks. So we focus on the Midlands region. We don't cover just Columbia proper. We have a pretty good sized radius. There are a few clubs across South Carolina, of course. In terms of how I became involved initially, I opened up one of the emails I got from the Alumni Association that said, hey, we're looking for volunteers in the Columbia region for this club. And I reached out and got in contact with the past chair and their leadership, and they gave me an opportunity to come on board in the committee at the beginning of 2020. And when it came time this summer, the opportunity to be chair opened up. It was really exciting to be elected to have that role for the next 2 years. Now, of course, the majority of my time on the board, we have had event restrictions due to the pandemic. So really a big push over the last few months has been making sure that we're finding ways to engage and connect with all of our alumni in the region, making sure that we're contacting alumni who are, recent alumni, some of your alumni who graduated further in the past, or maybe coming in and out of the Columbia area, may have not been connected with our club recently. Because a lot of the local-based clubs, the big signature events they're going to do throughout the year are your social events, your happy hours, your game viewing parties, which I know are huge with clubs like Charlotte, New York City, really everywhere. It gives a great opportunity to connect with your fellow Gamecocks, your fellow fans, and have some people to cheer with during the game. And that's something that is also unique with this club in particular in Columbia. As students and alumni, you all know where the spots are to go in Columbia. You've probably got some friends here already too. So that's why, when we get into, the opportunity to get back to in-person events, we're going to be looking to showcase more about everything our city and region has, everything that has come in that is new, all the growth and great new things coming to the area, because we know that where to go watch the game, or you're going down to Williams-Brice and tailgating there anyway and going to the stadium and having a great time. So we're really looking for ways to complement that. We love the fact that there are so many alumni in the area here. It gives us a great opportunity as a club to engage with a ton of people and learn a lot about our fellow Gamecocks. But we're really looking to that getting into the spring, finding ways to showcase the city and just help connect with more alumni than those in our immediate group right around the members of the board. So it's a very exciting time to be with the Columbia Gamecocks because we have a lot in front of us. But really, regardless of where you're going again, there will always be opportunities to connect with your local clubs. The club leaders got engaged because they want to help fellow Gamecocks get connected or have people to have these fun, huge game viewing parties with. So there's always opportunities to get in touch with your club leaders across the country. There's a listing online on the alumni website of all the clubs and places. So it's really exciting to be a club leader. You get to really be the hub for all things Gamecock in your city. Unique for us in Columbia, but it's a great resource to have regardless of where you're going after graduation or wherever you move for your second, third, fourth job, whatever that takes you. So, it's great being part of the local-based club, and I'd encourage anybody to reach out to the leaders in your area after you graduate to find out, what they've got on their calendar, what's coming up, or even if there are ways to get involved a little bit more, because it's a great leadership opportunity. And honestly, it's just a lot of fun.
Sam, you are up next.
Wonderful. Katie, would you mind being the last one to go? Would you mind re-asking that question? I just want to make sure I give you a answer that specifically responds to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about your involvement with your alumni council, how you got involved, maybe some key activities that you guys engage in with your affinity group.
Sure. During my time at the University of South Carolina, um, like I mentioned earlier, I had a chance to interact and meet some really good Gamecocks. I failed to mention Mayor Benjamin, my former boss, is a former student body president. I got a chance to meet a ton of other student body presidents, of which there are some fabulous ones. One of them is a very close friend and somebody I cherish and think the world of, Joteka Edie. Joteka served on the Board of Governors with me, actually just rolled off. Also, another student body president who was also on the Board of Governors with me, and actually was student body president while I was at Carolina, Tommy Preston. Tommy and Joteka, we have a group chat, a few of us are in, and sometimes it gets us in trouble, and sometimes they encourage us to each other. We encourage each other to get involved in different things, and so they let me know that the spot was coming up, and that there was an opportunity, and so I applied, and quite frankly, it was a no-brainer to apply. Having the opportunity that have been provided to me because of being a Gamecock alum, and just quite frankly, you know, you look at higher ed and what higher ed can do, and we have so many folks who are here who work in higher ed and work with our young people and work with our future. You look at Carolina, and quite frankly, it solidified mine, right? And so the opportunity to work and serve on this board was a no-brainer. The Board of Governors, just kind of give you guys a little bit background on the structure, is the umbrella organization for the alumni, USC alumni. And so set policy, there's kind of two different arms. There's one arm of the Board of Governors in the Alumni Center that sets policy, and there's another arm that handles the programming and the actual daily operations of the actual building of the Alumni Center. And so the Board of Governors is responsible for both sides of the arm, making sure that from a policy standpoint, alumni and students are able to be engaged and have a voice, whether it's picking your next president of your institution, or it's going up to the State House and joining Billy and going up for Carolina Day at the South Carolina State House. And so those are just two examples. But for example, one other example I would add too is one of the subcommittees that I chair for the Board of Governors is the Advocacy Committee. And for example, being a public institution, as the university looks to expand and looks to provide more and more opportunities to our students, some of those opportunities we have to get the permission of the legislature for. And so that's also another arm of kind of mobilizing and encouraging people to be active and have a voice with some of the policymakers, whether it's on the local or state level or federal level for that matter. And so the Board of Governors does that on one arm, and then on the other arm, as I mentioned, there's the operations of the actual Alumni Center, making sure that the P&L flows appropriately, making sure that the programming, and Chanel and Billy and many others have mentioned some of the wonderful programming that we have actually in the Alumni Center from time to time. There are so many other organizations that take advantage of the beautiful, wonderful Pastides Center that we have, and so really, the Board of Governors looks to provide an opportunity for that to be a self-sustaining, wonderful opportunity for long time to come.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Our next question is going to be on just a memory. If you would share your favorite memory in your involvement with your group, maybe something sweet and personal, or maybe just something really fun that you got to do. So if you could share that.
Well, you have me thinking on a Friday. I have so many. I'm trying to think. I would have to say homecoming. Homecoming is always like a fun time. Where we reunite with fellow alums and connecting with students. It's just a very welcoming environment. And I have to say, pre-COVID, last year was our 40th anniversary of the Black Alumni Council. So it was like a big celebration. We started off our weekend with the Richard J. Greener Scholarship Breakfast, where Darcy Strickland was the moderator. That evening we had the networking social, and then the Saturday we had the tailgate, and then Sunday we had the worship service. That whole weekend was like full of love, full of unity, all focusing on the goal of raising money for the Richard T. Greener Scholarship. We also did a scholarship drive around that weekend as well. And as a result, we exceeded our goal of $20,000 last year. So that was a fun time. All of the board members we had one came all the way from California, Amber. Amber's my awesome board member. She's my go-to. So she came all the way from California to be part of our 40th anniversary. So it was a really amazing event. It was also a time for me to meet most of my board members face-to-face, because a lot of them are stationed outside of Columbia. So it was a good time to connect face-to-face. And it was just a very amazing experience. And I hope we be able to do that again in 2021. I'm going to claim that COVID will disappear.
I don't yet have a favorite moment for my affinity group, just because we're so new, other than the fact that we exist. And I was really excited to see that announcement out to alumni to express their interest. And then really excited to see that didn't just become a collection of interest. Let's see what we can do to actually create a group and create an opportunity. So I think that's, at present moment, that's my favorite moment, but I'll give you a favorite moment from my time at Carolina. So I referenced earlier that I was a graduate assistant for the Safe Zone program. And at that time, the student organization was called BGLSA. And what I really found is that Safe Zone existed, BGLSA was there, but both had tremendous opportunity. Both could really grow in their influence on campus. Both could really grow in their student engagement. Both could grow, I would say, in terms of connecting faculty and staff to the resources they could use to support students. I'm really excited and incredibly proud of USC, and I especially want to give a shout out to Dr. Dennis Pruitt, who is the Vice President of Student Affairs. Dr. Pruitt really saw that this was an area where we could enhance our support at the institution, and agreed to not only move the Safe Zone program into the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs, which is a perfect fit, but to further enhance that with not only a graduate assistantship, but also making sure there's a full-time position devoted to supporting LGBTQ plus students, but also creating allyship across the campus and creating understanding across the campus. You know, that can be kind of a bold decision for a Southeastern institution. But at the end of the day, our leadership said this is the right thing to do for the student. And to take that one step further, there was a period in time where it was a big deal to create an It Gets Better video to really help people understand that be yourself, and you may be experiencing challenges, but life gets better when you are yourself. And not only was Dr. Pruitt in that video, but so was Dr. Pastides. And what I really saw is that if you had a student at Carolina who was questioning, can I be myself here? You were seeing your institution had always embraced you, but we were outwardly embracing you as well. So while that's not related to my affinity group, I think those are some of the foundations that help bring us to the presence of an affinity group today. Carolina is just a remarkable place to be exactly who you are.
Yeah, what a great question, and I have so many memories. First, I want to just make sure that I thank Simone, who I think is on the call, who I think works with all the affinity groups, but who has just been incredible, just done a great job of supporting us. So I want to thank her. As for memories, again, so many. There's so many that comes to mind. One, you know, we had a baseball game last year. We had a World War II veteran there, and the chair of the alumni group actually threw out the first pitch. We had the World War II veteran there, just incredibly served in the Navy. Another one that just gives me chills is for one of our events, we actually went over to the 9/11 monument there in Columbia. We actually walked over there, and the gentleman who was responsible for a lot of it was there. And for our nation, for those of us who have served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and to people like me that had friends that were killed in the Pentagon, just powerful and just so meaningful. Also, as I said before, we just endowed the Salute the Service Scholarship. And that happened because Jared Evans, who also advises the group, was part of a group years ago that worked with homeless veterans in Colombia for housing. They made money as a result of that. They just shut down the organization, and they donated that to the Salute the Service Scholarship. But the members of that group represent Vietnam veterans, Iraq, Afghanistan veterans throughout the last 40, 50, 60 years. So that was very powerful. And I mentioned before the Veterans Run, which was amazing. President Caslin ran that. Great event. We started there by Long Street, and I think folks went the wrong way, got turned around, finished the run, but just amazing to be out there with fellow Gamecocks, and there was so much pride. And then one final memory, one final great event, we had a forum, a Zoom session about 2 months ago, and we just kind of shared military service, and Coach Staley joined us, and that was just amazing. I mean, I saw her, and I was like, that looks like Coach Staley, and I'm thinking, wait, Coach Staley wouldn't, why would she, and then it was, and she talked to us, and, she wasn't there, it was time, she talked, just many incredible memories of my time with the Veterans Alumni Council, and hopefully, and I know we'll have many great memories, many great events to come as well. Thank you.
So I've truly enjoyed our programming and our events that we've done through the Young Alumni Council. But I will say one experience that really stood out to me is homecoming, the first year after I joined Young Alumni Council. So the neat thing is, obviously South Carolina has a humongous alumni base, but when I attended the homecoming events, like the tailgate prior to the game, which is one of my most favorite events hosted by the Alumni Association, I actually got to hang out with some of my friends from Young Alumni Council instead of just seeing, the 2 or 3 people that I showed up with, whether it was my family or some friends or what have you. And I think it's neat because you can kind of find your place within the greater alumni family if you are part of an alumni council, or an affinity council, or you attend events or participate in a local club. I think all of that really does help you find your people. And it was a really awesome experience to be able to hang out with people that I would, talk to on calls or on meetings. And I think also when we did the Maker's Mark tasting, I got to sit with Taylor Kane, who was our chair-elect at the time. And it's great to be able to meet people that you wouldn't have met in your classes, but you're even at the school at the same time. So I would say those are my experiences that I value most, just not only getting to be a part of the council and do what we do, but really getting to connect with the members outside as well.
Yeah, I could echo a lot of Brooks's sentiments there in terms of the personal connections that you get from your interaction with people on your board, on your council that you're working with, and just folks at the events. Katie, when you posed the question about best memory, I kind of racked my brain a little bit. I'm glad I'm later in the lineup than Chanel and Drew and everybody went ahead of me. But 2 things really came to mind. Initially, one of our signature events since I've been chair was an online cooking tutorial with Ms. Moore Pastidi, former First Lady. And that was, in terms of best memory, the event was fantastic. We had a great turnout. The best memory on my part was when we were wrapping it up, because it was such a huge undertaking by folks on my council, on my board, that helped organize the event, and just bringing so many different speakers and perspectives in with all the technology via Zoom. And y'all know, if you're planning some online meetings, some people may not be as technologically savvy than others. So there were some challenges in being able to navigate all of them, and be able to put a great product out there for all the alumni and folks in the community attended. That was a great thing to see once we wrapped it up. And as a shameless plug, there's another one coming up. So check UofSCalumni.org/events. There's another one next week coming up. So look at that. The other memory that sticks out, it's something that can come along if you're one of the leaders of one of these councils or your local clubs. There are sometimes some perks. So I had the chance last fall to go volunteer for an event. The Alumni Association was doing Gamecocks on the Road, where they go to selected away football games and do essentially a tailgate for fans in that area or folks who are traveling to those cities. So having the chance to tag along for that and see that the Gamecock pride, some of that energy should show up and give a nice little section of garnet in what was a very, very orange Knoxville that day last fall. The game didn't turn out the way that we had wanted exactly, but it was really exciting, again, just to see some of the excitement and the energy that can come together when you have a group of Gamecocks, regardless of where you are, whether you're in Columbia or outside, come together. And that's something that I feel like I'd only really get if I was in touch with the Alumni Association, able to engage with my club now and just offer up my help. Being in touch with those leaders of the boards who came before me gave me a lot of chances to engage with my fellow alumni. And there are some really cool things that came along with it, being able to host these great events, meet some really cool people affiliated with the university or just fellow graduates. Those are the things that really stick out when I think about best memories in my time involved with the club.
So, like Billy, I am so thankful to not have to go first, and I'm glad Chanel and Keith and so many others really took the time to really dive in on this answer and give me a chance to think about it. I'm like Chanel, homecoming is always special. I mean, I can't put into words sometimes, what it's like to, see folks who meant a lot to you that don't live in Columbia, that you got, of course you get a chance to fellowship with and spend time with. I think, a couple of themes come to mind. One, I would say, I wish our board meetings were broadcast live or streamlined. They would be worth, it's like so some of our folks are some characters, and they know exactly who they are if they are watching. So each board meeting is special. I will tell you, one of them in particular was very special to me. The last board meeting that we had with President Pastides was very special. As somebody who has 2 degrees that he signed off on as a first-generation college student, that was extremely special to me. My little brother, we're 10 years apart, graduated from honors college under President Pastides' tenure and leadership. And so for a generation of my family, President Pastides has meant so much to us. So I would say just the opportunity to pull him in close and tell him just that, and how much his decade of leadership at the University of South Carolina meant to my family, that was extremely special. I'm trying to remember. I had a second one I'm trying to remember. So that's what happens when you get old and you're the old man on the board. I lost it. Being old, guys.
Well, maybe you'll remember it here sometime soon throughout our next question, and you can share it after. So I think this might be our final question, depends on our time, but what advice would you give to a soon-to-be graduate as they are looking to join the Alumni Council? Maybe that's in your career. Any just advice that you would want to give?
Ooh, I can write a book. I have, because I will say to a future graduate, network, get involved, don't burn bridges, connect with your professors, because they're the ones that will help you. Sometimes it may not be what you know, it's who you know most of the times, especially with this unprecedented time right now. That's what I would have told myself 20 years down the road when I was graduating. I wasn't fortunate to have the resources. I did everything on my own, and moving forward, it's like giving back to, future alumni. Get involved, network, don't burn bridges. I know senior year could be a busy time, and you may put school on the back burner right now because you're focusing on other things. But remember, professors could be the people that can write recommendation letters for a job or internship or even for graduate school. You do not want to burn that bridge. Get involved in alumni association. I even tell my current students, it's cheaper to be involved as a student in a professional organization or even an alumni association when you get older and you pay all that money. Take advantage when it's cheaper fees, because you'll be surprised the people that you will connect in those organizations and who they know and how they can be a resource or a mentor for you. So take advantage of the opportunities, network, don't burn bridges, and get involved.
I would say two things. First is wear your Carolina gear as many places as you can. It's really amazing to me. Now, granted, I haven't been in an airport, I think, all year this year, but it's really amazing that when you go to an airport or you're exploring another city, you're going to run into people who are really excited to come over to you and tell you how they are connected to Carolina, or their child went to Carolina, or their great grandparent went to Carolina, and everybody loves Carolina. Or they're a big Gamecock football fan and they just love Carolina through football and not maybe through enrollment in some way. So first, wear your Carolina gear proudly. But the second thing I would say is, as you do your job search, as you think about the city you want to live in, as you think about the way you want to live life, I think it's easy to get really distracted and take the shiny thing that's right there in front of you. We all get distracted from time to time from just a salary, for example, or a title. And I would say be thinking about authentically what really matters to you. What kind of an environment do you want to work in? What kind of city do you want to live in? What kind of people do you want to surround yourself with? And it's worth it to rigorously hold to that, because then what you'll find is it's not just any job, it's the job. It's the right environment. It's the thing that fills you with passion. It's not a thing you just wake up and go do. It's a thing you believe in. And I know that maybe that sounds overly simplistic, but that's probably my biggest piece of advice. It's also the biggest piece of advice I give in advising sessions whenever I'm advising students. So I would say, know your values and know yourself and let that guide you forward. But definitely wear that Carolina gear, because you never know who's out there. And we're always excited to meet another Gamecock.
Yeah, I think that's great comments, Drew. And just to add to your story, I have a Carolina sweatshirt that I've worn for, dear God, for close to 30 years now. It's 100% cotton. They don't even make them anymore. I've tried to find a replacement. But I was over in Germany, and not in a big city. I was somewhere in some little town along the Rhine River, and I was wearing that. And it just happened to be, there was a delegation from South Carolina that was there, and they saw that Gamecock sweatshirt. And, we spent about a day talking about South Carolina. So, yeah, I encourage you, no matter where you are around the world, to wear your Gamecock stuff. But stay involved, stay engaged. There are so many graduates, so many people with links to South Carolina. Grow your network. You never know how the people that you encounter, how they may affect what you're doing, be it from a business, from a career. I mentioned before the Salute the Service Scholarship. I have reached out to my Gamecock alumni friends and asked them to contribute, and many of them have done so. And I'm a firm believer in giving back. The university gave me so much and really set me up for success. And, I think for graduates that part of our responsibility is giving back in time, giving back, be it money, but most importantly, commitment to the university and to our community, and just a great, great community. So, stay involved and stay engaged.
I'm going to share a personal experience that actually led me to my current position right now where I am at work. So I would say two things. First off, keep up with your LinkedIn. Make sure it is very reflective of you, of what you do, your skills, and stay on top of your connections. When you meet someone at an event, be sure to connect with them because you never know. And then also volunteer. Even if you're not an affinity council member like we are, there are so many ways that you can get involved even in your community. And those two things, honestly, LinkedIn and volunteering, are what led me to my current job. What happened was I was volunteering in an event in the Charleston area and connected with the man who was emceeing the event. And he was actually the head of school at the school where I work now. He was our previous head of school. So we connected on LinkedIn and after the fact, and just stayed in touch. And then when the director of communication role, which was my first hire at Pinewood, came open, he thought about me. He knew that I had a background in communications from our connection on LinkedIn, and called me in for an interview, and the rest is history. So I would genuinely encourage anyone to maintain that LinkedIn and just volunteer, get yourself out there. It's good to give back, obviously, but you also never know what types of connections that you'll build throughout that process.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of good points from, everybody so far in response to this, all things that kind of came to mind when we talked about advice for soon-to-be graduates or recent graduates. I think everyone can get on board and give a friendly head nod and wave and a spurs up if they see somebody walking around the airport in their Beat Clemson shirt, how their spirit pack. But I think, we've got a group here where, if you're attending this, you're taking the time on a Friday morning to listen to people you may or may not know, try to give you advice on how to really position yourselves well to be engaged as an alumni and a professional after you graduate. So, I don't think that, how do I say this right? Y'all already know what to do in terms of being ambitious and finding ways to get engaged and take opportunities when they present themselves, right? So I think something that, I found myself doing when I first got into grad school, when I first graduated, and something that would be kind of a cautionary tale for those of you that may be the type to really dive into whatever the task at hand is right in front of you. Make sure you continue to make time for your friends, for the social side of your life, because, when you're in college, that's the component that a lot of times, I don't want to speak for everybody, a lot of times what you look back on is some of the fondest memories and the most fun that you had during those 4 years or however long you're at Carolina. So I really think it's important to make a really true effort to keep up with those people that you're close to in college, because it can serve two benefits, right? It's really great to keep up with those folks and see where they're going with their lives and just continue to have those friendships over time. And you never know what kind of opportunities they may be able to make you aware of. It's really easy when you get into your first job, you're finally focused on one thing, because I know when you're a student, you're doing 1,000 different things. Really dive into it, which is a great thing to do. You really want to get in as deep as you can in that first thing you're doing, but it's good to keep some time for yourself. Do what you need to do to stay socially engaged with the people you're close with. It can help you build connections for down the road, and it helps that social aspect of college. It's hard to replicate, but it won't make it completely disappear when you graduate, because that's something that everyone just as people that you need, and that's becoming all the more recognizable to people now that we're all engaging in social distancing and not getting in large crowds. It is really important and crucial and easy to lose that component. Make sure you focus on maintaining those friendships after you graduate.
So this is a very interesting answer, a question for me. My brother, as I mentioned, graduated from Honors College last year, and recently moved to New York and is working at Goldman Sachs, and very proud of him. So I think of some of the advice that I've given him over the course of time at Carolina, and now that he's a graduate. First thing I tell everybody I ever speak to, whether they're a graduate of Carolina or not, is this some advice that my mentor, who was a Carolina alum, gave me, which was to dream big dreams, right? And while you may be ambitious, go that step further, right? Make your dream that much bigger. I've been blessed. I forget, I think it was Drew was talking about the airport experience. I have been in airports around this country and met people who have noticed the Gamecock. I have seen Clemson Tigers. I met, as me and my wife were expecting towards the end of last year, I met a guy who saw my Carolina attire on and was a diehard Clemson fan. Had the deepest conversation about family and life. He was an older gentleman, but wanted to talk to me about the experience and how much it meant to have grandchildren, right? Just randomly in the airport. And so what I would say first is dream big dreams. I have to say ditto to what Drew mentioned about wearing your Carolina attire. You'd be surprised. I will have to say though, we got to get Keith a new sweatshirt. But we got to send him a new sweatshirt. But what I would also say is also don't. And I'm trying to think of the best way to articulate this. Don't be in a rush. There are so many opportunities out there, right? The opportunities that you don't even realize that are there tomorrow, right? And so, as somebody, I think Chanel mentioned, don't burn bridges. Don't sit there and cast yourself, into one role, right? There are so many different avenues that life changes, and who knew that 2020 was going to look like this, right? So there are so many avenues for folks to go and go down. Life has an interesting way of sending us curveballs. Don't be surprised when there's a new avenue that opens up to you. And so I think what I would say is to be, Gamecocks are resilient by nature. Something about our football team makes us that way. And so I would just encourage folks to be open to wonderful opportunities that are out there.
Thank you each for sharing. So that is it. Our time is up for our Q&A with our alumni panelists. I would just like, on behalf of everyone, to say thank you for sharing your insights, for your involvement as you continue to make a way for students and alumni to connect together, building the Gamecock community. So on that note, we're going to take a little break as we are doing all these Zoom meetings. I know that it's hard, so we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back at 10:20 to hear from Jay Brown on financial management. So grab water, use the restroom, take a break, and I'll see you soon. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And we are going to hear from Jay Brown now. And I'd just like to introduce him before he gets started. So Jay Brown is originally from Brunswick, Georgia, and he's now lived in the Columbia area for 12 years. He and his wife, Lauren, a high school biology teacher at Spring Hill High School, have 2 children, Jace, who's 6, and Olivia, who's 5. Jay and Lauren are active members of Riverland Hills Baptist Church, where he serves as a deacon, and he and Lauren help teach an adult Sunday school class. Jay attended the University of South Carolina from 2006 to 2010 and was a pitcher and a captain on the 2010 College World Series champion baseball team under head coach Ray Tanner. Prior to joining Cornerstone, Jay worked as the assistant director of the Gamecock Club in the UofSC athletics department, where he helped raise money for athletic scholarships and facilities while overseeing all former student athlete initiatives. And in his spare time, Jay enjoys playing golf, fishing, coaching Little League sports, and spending time with his family. So without further ado, I will let Jay get started.
Thanks, Katie. Great to be here. I was able to tune in a little bit prior to this session, and the panel of guests that y'all had it just seemed dynamic and really good information. So really cool to be able to experience a little bit of that as well. This is an awesome session, an awesome event that they put on for y'all, and hopefully I can add some value. You'll have to forgive me for my telemarketer look right now. I've found over the last 6-8 months of the COVID pandemic that when I'm doing Zoom meetings with clients, the microphone on my computer isn't very good, and so I can continuously cut in and out. And so I invested in a little telemarketer headset that hopefully the microphone doesn't have any issues hearing me. But yeah, I'm here to Haven, and some of the organizers asked me to do a little bit of a financial management session for you guys, and so hopefully, like I said, I'll be able to add some value. And Katie, if you can slide to the next slide, if you will. Like it was said, I did graduate from UofSC in 2008 and 2010, so not too far ago. Too long ago. Got my Bachelor of Political Science and my Master's of Public Administration. At one point, I thought I was going to be an attorney. At another point, I thought I was going to be a city administrator. But both of those, I decided that I didn't want to go into law school and continue 3 more years of school after my Master's of Public Administration. And then the public sector of things ended up kind of fading out of my dreams or out of my aspirations, and worked at UofSC in the athletics department for a couple of years and did some fundraising, and then have been here at Cornerstone for about 5 years and really enjoy it. Just real quick before I get into it, a little bit about Cornerstone. We're a financial planning firm here in Columbia. We have a staff of 6 people, so a fairly small, petite firm, but financial planning is the sweet spot for what we do. And a lot of people don't really know how to define financial planning, but financial planning, it's an all-inclusive, a comprehensive, investments, retirement planning, insurance, cash flow, budgeting, estate planning. Basically, you're piecing together all of the financial aspects of your life and other decisions into this overarching plan that hopefully will get you to a point where yes, I can retire. Yes, I can do. I can set some goals, financially that I'll be able to achieve. And so that's the plan. With what we do here, like I said, investments are a piece of it. Cash flow and budgeting is a piece of it, and that's kind of where I'm gonna start off. And if you will, go to the next slide. With just a little introduction, when I was thinking about what would be appropriate, what kind of financial planning or financial management message do I want to provide to you guys here. And I put myself in your shoes 10, 12 years ago when I'm entering the workforce. What do I wish I would have known then that I know now? So there's a couple of questions that I'm going to answer for y'all, and then I'm sure, and maybe Katie, you'll have to kind of run point on this. But if there's any questions throughout this session that you want to just stop me, I'm perfectly fine to be a little bit more informal maybe than then we have to be. And so if you have a question during this session about something specific that I said, or if you're just curious about something, feel free to, however you need to ask that question. And again, like I said, Katie, you might have to run point because I'm not exactly sure what all I'll be able to see or view. So with that being said, just a quick introduction. I want to give you the #1 rule to your financial success, your long-term financial success. People are going to say picking the right stocks or bonds or investments or, doing this or doing that. The #1 rule is to, if you remember this, you'll be fine. Spend less than you make, save the difference in something that will give you a chance at long-term growth. It's pretty simple. Spend less than you make and save the difference. It's not hard. It's not a concept that is elaborate or sophisticated when it comes to different financial gurus or talking heads. But really, that's the name of the game. That's the #1, the #1 thing to achieve some financial success. Spend less than you make, save the difference. What I'll be going through, and you can jump to the next slide. What I'll be going through, it's not an all-inclusive list. It's not questions that are the end-all, be-all, and my answers aren't the end-all, be-all. There may be certain systems or certain ways that you identify or that you currently do handle money that works well for you. But again, I just wanted to give you some information, some education, some guidance over what has happened, the course of my life when I'm, experiencing things with clients and what that looks like. So #1 question to get this thing started is, as a graduate, as a, entering the workforce, all right, where's my money going? I'm getting paid. I have a job. Where is my money going? Well, I can tell you right off the bat that when you are offered a job or when you have a job, your gross pay is not going to be your take-home pay. Your gross pay, you may get a job offer for $50,000 annual salary. Well, you're not going to be taking home $50,000 in the bank after 12 months. You're paying taxes, you're paying insurance, you're paying Social Security. There's a number of things that are coming out, potentially retirement accounts that are coming out of that $50,000 in this case that you will never see. And so your net pay is actually what's going to come home after all of the taxes, all of the insurance, all of the extra things are taken out. And so just be aware of that. As you're entering the workforce, the offer, the job offer may be $50,000, but again, that's not going to be the take-home pay. The next thing is, when it comes to where's my money going, that's going to be a question that you're going to have to figure out how to answer time and time again, month by month, year by year, because I can tell you that the majority of people do not budget. They have no plan of action of actually where their money is going. And if I were to ask, hey, where is your money going? They would not be able to answer that question. 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Over 60% of Americans don't have $1,000 in the bank. And so, where is my money going? The overarching answer for most Americans is going to be, I don't know. So with that, there are a couple of ways that I've found that seemingly works to help identify where your money is going. Most people hate the word budget or budgeting. There's two trains of thought there that we provide guidance to clients there. The first one is I'm going to talk about is the zero-based budgeting approach, and it sounds just like what it is. If you make $2,000 net pay this month, then you're going to do a zero-based line item budget, $500 for a rent or home, $200 for gas, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the month, that budget is zero. So where your money is going, what you're spending money on, if there's frivolous spending, if there's money that's fallen, a hole in your pocket, the zero-based budgeting technique would work to be able to identify, all right, this is where my money is going to go. I'm going to tell it where to go, and this is the strategy for that. A lot of people do not like that because it is a lot of upkeep. It is a lot of staying on top of things. So there's another technique that I've kind of you know, I've kind of been able to share with some clients. I call it scarcity budgeting. I don't know if I don't know if that's the greatest term for it, but it works. And so if you hear me out, what the scarcity budgeting is at the beginning of the month, you pay all of the things that you need to pay. You pay, you know, your house, your electricity, your utilities, you know, your insurances. You pay yourself and that's something that we'll touch base here in a little bit, but typically say 15% of your gross income needs to go towards some type of retirement vehicle or earmarked for retirement. You pay yourself that 15% just like it's a bill. And then what you've got left is what you've got left for the month, because you've already paid all of your necessary expenses, your house, your retirement, you know, your insurance and stuff. And so you've got this portion of money that you're going to have to figure out how to make it work, you know, groceries and gas and, you know, pocket money and everything else. That's more of a cash flow management versus an actual budget. But again, that has worked for some people that don't want to do the absolute zero-based, you know, line item budget. And so, you know, those are a quick, where is my money going? That's the biggest question that you're going to have to answer is when you get into, you know, the workforce and you're, you know, quote, on your own as far as, you know, paying your bills and your insurances and your, you know, your rental or your house living situation and, you know, your dry cleaners, if that's a situation, you're going to have to figure out where it's going to go. And I will tell you, you're not going to be able to do this the first month that you're out in the real world, or that you're, you know, have just moved to take another job, or, you know, have a life change. It typically takes 3 to 4 months of that new life change or whatever it is to really be able to hone in on, you know, what does my budget look like? How much money am I actually taking home with this new job? What are my expenses with this new, you know, living arrangement, or this new city that I'm in, or you know, and you just fill in the blanks and continuously are modifying and fine tuning it. You know, if you do have a significant other, then the budget conversation, is as dry and bland as that sounds, may be a conversation that you need to plan on a date night. And hey, listen, I know that this isn't the most romantic date night, but let's go out to eat and talk about our monthly budget, or talk about, you know, our quarterly budget. I know that for me, my wife wants no part of our monthly budget, wants no part of our, you know, cash flow planning, but she knows enough about it where if I get hit by a bus on the way home today, that she's going to be able to do what she needs to do to continue to make our household run with our kids and everything else. And so, number one question, where's my money going? That's something that I can't emphasize enough, of being able to answer that question and know where your money is going. So let's jump to the next slide. And let me see. Okay, no questions. All right, how much money do I need in the bank? Another good question. And you know, you probably are already kind of getting the idea of things. You know, I'm not talking about specific stocks or mutual funds or, you know, hedging strategies or volatility in the market. You know, there's all these things that for some people, you know, you don't need to hear it. You need to practice cash flow management. You need some of the practical financial management tips. And so hopefully that's something that you guys are interested in, something that you guys would like to know. And so here we are. So next question, how much money do I need in the bank? Great question there. What we typically tell people, and there's a couple different trains of thoughts. There's a couple different talking heads, you know, on the radio or on TV that'll tell you different answers. But our sweet spot is going to be an emergency fund. So money that is out of sight, out of mind. You're not dipping into it to buy a new TV or to you know, buy something, you know, pay off your credit card, or you know, buy something that you don't necessarily need. This emergency fund, out of sight, out of mind, is usually going to be 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. So, you know, if your expenses are $3,000 a month for everything, then your emergency fund needs to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $9,000 to $18,000. Again, this is in a savings account that's out of sight, out of mind. I personally use an online bank, because that online bank doesn't have a debit card, it doesn't have check writing privileges, it doesn't even have an ATM. For me to swing by and grab some cash. I literally have to log into my account online, set up the transfer to my checking account, and then there's a 72-hour delay. So there's a little bit of a kind of an administrative hurdle that I have to go just to make sure that, hey, do I really need this money out of my emergency fund? Again, the checking account, that's kind of your operational. Operational. I keep a very, very slim number, just a little bit of a buffer, but that's where my, my paycheck's coming in. That's where my bills are getting paid out of. And that's, for me, you don't necessarily need 17 different types of an accounts. You got a checking account, you've got a savings account that's an emergency fund. And between the two of those, that's your 3 to 6 months of expenses. The one thing that I will say when it comes to how much is a good number for me, how much should I have in the bank? How much should I have in an emergency fund? A lot depends on job security. A lot depends on upcoming purchases, and a lot depends on life changes. So if you're in and this has been a great example in 2020. I don't know if a great example is the right word, but 2020 is an example of the job security question. Because you may have thought that you had there's a lot of people that thought they had a very secure job, and unfortunately with this pandemic, they no longer do, and they've had to figure out how to make it work, or vice versa. They've been able to withstand the pandemic, and their job is very secure. So, that's an indication there. But, if you're in a very seasonal profession or something that may be only a certain amount of time, your emergency fund may need to be beefed up more than others that are maybe in a state job that appears to be in no significant danger. And then a lot depends, of course, if your significant other, if your spouse, if you're married, if that person has a stable job as well. So, if you don't have a stable job or a seasonal, or if you have a seasonal job, when I think about that, I think about real estate agents. Not sure how much they're going to get paid this month versus the next month. Then that emergency fund may need to be beefed up a little bit. Upcoming purchases, if you're about to buy a house, if you're about to buy a car, if you're about to go down to Disney World, then that bank, money in the bank would need to be beefed up. You definitely don't want to, amass a ton of credit card, a ton of personal loan, a ton of different types of loans. And so if you can avoid a lot of that borrowing, then stockpile some cash, earmark some cash for the bank for that specific thing. And then the third one, if the emergency fund may need to be beefed up some, would be life changes. If you're about to have a child, then cash is king for that time. Add a little bit more to the emergency fund. You never know what's going to happen from an expense standpoint. If you move, if you do buy a house, if you get married, if you get a divorce, if there's a death in the family, those life changes, as cliche as it is, cash is king. The more money that you have at your fingertips, the better. So that's, in a quick nutshell, kind of the how much money do I need in the bank, and typically 3 to 6 months of expenses is going to be kind of that sweet spot. And then again, you may add a little bit or maybe a little bit less for you. So next slide, next question, please. All right, how should I tackle my debt? Great question there. Some of you may be coming out of college or out of your programs with student loans, with car loans, with personal loans, with credit card loans, you name it. I name it, you've got it kind of a situation. And so I'm going to just give you a quick way to kind of assess what you've got going on. Some of you may have heard of a radio personality named Dave Ramsey. He talks about the debt snowball, where essentially you list your debts from smallest to largest, and you pay the minimums on everything except the smallest. Everything that you can do to pay off that smallest one as fast as you can, you do it. You limit your restaurant activities, you limit your vacations, you limit all of this other excess kind of added stuff, and you just pay off the debt. Once you scratch that debt off at the top, you go to the next one. You go to the next one. You go to the next one. And so that's the debt snowball that Dave Ramsey talks about. For some people, that works better than anything else. For others, that may not be the best strategy. Some people may pay minimums on loans, on student loans, on credit card loans. If a person does that, my only warning, my only advice would be to make sure that that the minimums that you're paying, the difference in what you could be if you were attacking those debts aggressively, minus the minimums that you're paying, is being invested in some sort of a retirement vehicle. It's not being spent on that TV or spent on that stereo system or spent on whatever that next ticket item is. If you're going to be if not aggressively attacking debt, then make sure that there is an avenue for funds to be invested or added to retirement vehicles. The other thing when it comes to tackling the debt, high interest rate versus low interest rate, we're in a very, very, very low interest rate environment right now. So, you can borrow money at what that means is you can borrow money for lower interest rates than we could last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And so, when it comes to purchases like a house, purchases like a car that may have even potentially student loan interest rates that may have lower interest rates compared to your credit card interest rate, then that would be a situation where you would attack that credit card debt first with the higher interest rate and go ahead and knock those out. And then as you get toward the lower interest rates, that's the question of, should I invest this money or should I continue to pay off debt? And so those are some things to think about. How should I tackle my debt? The Debt Snowball by Dave Ramsey. That's something you could Google. Many of you have probably even already heard of it. But again, assessing your specific situation to know, is this for me or should I pay the minimums and look toward the retirement? Those are, I can give kind of general information, but until you sit down with someone, and kind of look at your specific case-by-case situation, it's hard for me to say, you definitely need to do this or you definitely need to do that. So let's shoot for the next slide, and I'll keep going through. I don't think there's any questions so far. All right, so another question that I wish that maybe I would have, known now what I knew then is, all right, your first job offers retirement benefits. What should I do and how much should I save? So this is a great question because some of you may be, starting a job, right after Christmas. Some of you maybe have already started a job, and there's a retirement benefit package as it comes with a job. Whether, if you're working in the private industry, it could be called a 401k. If you're working in the public sector, for the state, it could be the South Carolina Retirement System or the state ORP. Those two are two different options. You also may hear about things like the 403B or the 457. Don't worry about all that. That's in the weeds for what you guys really need to know, at least right now. That's a lot of IRS type of details. But if let's say you start a job and your job offers retirement, the first thing you should do is figure out if there is a match. So what that means is, all right, if I work for ABC Company and they offer retirement benefits and I put 3% of my income into a retirement account, they will match that 3% dollar for dollar. So, by the numbers, if that means you're making $50,000 a year, 3% of that is going to be $1,500. So that means if I put my own $1,500 into that account, then that company will match $1,500. My overarching advice with that is do it. If you can do it from a cash flow standpoint, do it. Maximize the match, because that's literally, free money. That's me putting a $20 bill on the table and someone beside me putting a $20 bill on the table, and I can grab both of those, both of those 20. So maximize the match. When it above and beyond that, then you start having to figure out, okay, from a cash flow standpoint, from a debt, from a income standpoint, what else can I do? In a perfect world, our goal for saving for retirement is 15% of your gross annual income. And so that's something you can write down if you guys are taking notes. But the goal is at some point you're getting to 15% of your gross annual income. If you make $100,000, that's easy. 15% of $100,000 is $15,000. That's how much you should be putting toward, the 401k, the 403b, the different types of retirement accounts. Again, that's a little bit more into the weeds than I think that we have to get in today. But 15% is that goal, is that sweet spot. If you can get a 15% and then you still have more money, then by all means, shoot up to 20%. Now there gets to be some maximum limits that the IRS imposes, and again, that gets a little bit more into the weeds. But the takeaway here is, what should I do? If you have a retirement plan that a company or whoever your employer is willing to match to a certain percent, then take full advantage of that match. And then after that, we have to assess the debt, the cash flow, the budgeting. What all do we have going on to determine, do we need to continue to get to that? What else can we do to get to that goal of 15% of our gross annual income? The last thing before we jump to the next slide that I'll touch on is this gets into where the investments conversation would come into play, because what you don't want to do is put 15% of your money into cash in a bank and get 0.01% interest rate, as what cash in the bank basically is paying right now. You want to get your money into investment vehicles that are geared toward growth, especially the younger that you are. And so in the early stages of your saving, a lot of what would make sense would be what they call a target date retirement fund. So, if you are 22 years old in 2020 right now, and you're planning to retire at 62 years old, that's 40 years from now. And so you would look at a target date retirement fund. It will say this on the option. It'll say, 2060 target date retirement. And that would be, a fairly appropriate investment for you to be in, geared toward growth. And again, that gets a little bit into the weeds, but you certainly don't want all of this savings to just be sitting in cash. You want it to be able to grow. You want to be able to have it, 40, 50 years down the line for your retirement bucket. All right, next slide. All right, this maybe it may be relevant right now and maybe a few years down the line, but another question is, when should I buy a house? A lot to kind of unfold there. One of the answers is, how secure is your job, and how secure is where or how likely are you to continue to be where you currently are? If you're renting right now and you're looking to buy a house, are you going to plan on being in that city in the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? The one thing that I do remember at this stage, when I was at that stage in life, is I had a real estate agent that told me, that said, what, this is a very big decision, but at the end of the day, it's not life or death. Could you lose some money? Sure. Could it be a bad investment? Sure. But, we can't see the future. So, if it does end up where, you maybe buy a house too soon, in retrospect, you can't undo what you've already done. So you've got to be optimistic. You've got to push forward. And so for some reason, and I know that sounds kind of doom and gloom a little bit, but that real estate agent telling me that, like, it is a big decision, but it's not life or death. Like, at the end of the day, you have your health, and you have, you have your life. And so, don't stress too much about, one of these big decisions of buying a house. But yeah, how long will you be in an area? What's your job situation like? Is it somewhere, if you have kids, or if you think you're going to have kids, is it somewhere you want to raise your family? How's the school districts? And again, that gets, super into the weeds. There's a lot of things to unpack there. But when it comes to the actual financial, when do I buy a house? What we like to see is is basically a 20% down payment. So if you're buying a $100,000 house, we like to see a $20,000 down payment. That gets you away from what they call PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. And it's just a term that basically the lender is protected if you can't make the payment. But 20% down on your house would be what we want to see. And then from that, we don't want the monthly house payment. The monthly house payment, insurance, taxes, homeowners association, anything that has to do with the house, to be more than 35% of your income. So, you hear the term about keeping up with the Joneses a lot, or house rich, money poor, because you have people that maximized the very, very, very high end of what they could afford, or what they could be loaned money for to buy a house, and then all of their money for the month is going toward this massive house payment. Well, you can't get any cash out of your house payment unless you sell your house or get a loan off of your house. And so, 35% is the maximum of your 35% of your income is the maximum that you want your house payment, plus your insurance, taxes, homeowners association, all of that. And so that's something to think about. And then the final question that comes with the house is, what kind of mortgage do I get? You hear the term 30-year mortgage, 15-year mortgage. They also call them adjusted rate mortgages. They call them ARMs. We're always going to look at the 15-year or the 30-year fixed rate mortgage, especially right now in low interest rate environment. Me personally, I'm a fan of the 30-year mortgage, and that's because you have a lower monthly payment than the 15-year mortgage. However, if you want to, increase your 30-year mortgage to make it like a 15-year, you can. You have that flexibility. But if you come on some tougher times income-wise, then you have, a little bit more of a safety net that the required monthly payment isn't as much in that 30-year mortgage. And I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but again, these are just some things. My hope is that you're not thinking of remembering everything that I'm saying, but that, in a certain situation, something triggers in your mind that, I think that guy talked about that at that seminar that I was at on Zoom. Maybe I need to invest this a little bit more before I sign on the dotted line. And so that's the goal there. And then we'll go to the next slide. I know that we've only got about 10 minutes or so. So this will kind of be a conclusion. And then if there's any questions. So this one was an easy one for me to do. What else do I need to know? There's a lot of things. A lot of things that you need to know, but also a lot of things that you're going to learn through experience. And, I can sit here and tell you something right now that you're going to wish you would have known after the fact, but a lot of things that you're going to learn and that you're going to go through are going to help you, help you make that next good financial decision. But a couple of things that key takeaways or key, what else do I need to know that probably could have been other slides, but again, I didn't want to continue to do all of these different questions. There are certain foundational insurances that you need when you're out on your own. If you're renting, you need to get renter's insurance. It's cheap, but you need to get renter's insurance. Obviously, if you own a home and own a car, you have to have home and auto. Those go without saying. Renter's insurance you're not forced to have unless the I guess landlord or the rental, the apartment complex or wherever you're renting forces you to. But you need renter's insurance to insure the stuff that you have if the place burns down or whatnot, a storm. If someone is dependent upon your income, you need life insurance. If you're married, if you have children, and this gets a little bit kind of in the weeds, but if you are the care provider to an elderly person, and if something happens to you, then that elderly person won't be able to, get the care, then you need life insurance. If someone is dependent upon you and your income, then you need life insurance. And that's going to be typically in term, they call it level term life insurance, where you pay the exact same amount every month for a death benefit. That life insurance is a key there. Also disability insurance. Once you have an income, people that are in their 30s and 40s are, I believe it's 4 times more likely to become disabled than they are to die in their 30s and 40s. And so if you become disabled and you cannot work to produce an income, then you're not only not producing an income, but you very well could be an added expense to what the initial plan was. So disability insurance is another foundational thing that you need. Life insurance, disability. Once you get to a certain level of net worth or a certain level of assets, there's something called umbrella insurance that you would want to kind of dig into that protects, it's like an umbrella. It literally protects everything. So those are some of the foundational insurances. Another thing, what else do I need to know? Please don't pull money out of retirement accounts. So 401ks, 403bs, state ORP, anything that is identified by the IRS as a retirement account. If you can do anything to not touch that money, please do that. Now, the one caveat, if we have someone that to avoid bankruptcy may get out of that money or may get that money out of the account, then okay. But please don't. And the reason is because once you take money out of those retirement accounts, it could be taxed. It very well could be penalized. But what you don't realize at the time is that time value of money. So $10,000 today has a chance to be, well into the six figures without adding an additional dollar to it in 40 years, just with the growth and what they call compound interest, which is a whole nother, segment. And so if you can help it, please don't take money out of your retirement account. If you change jobs, they may say, hey, what do you want to do with your 401k? Well, don't take it out. You may want to keep it in the 401k, roll it into an IRA. There's a number of options, but please don't cash it out. One of the other things, once you start investing, and we've been seeing this here lately, especially this year, there's something in the market called volatility, which is, $1 today invested may be worth $1.20 tomorrow, or it could be worth 70 cents. There's no guarantees when it comes to investing in the stock market. In the short term, don't worry about volatility. A lot of you have 30 and 40 years before, you're going to be retiring, and you may need money out of these retirement accounts. Don't worry about it. Some people check the stock market minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. Yeah, you want to be informed and you want to be educated on what your money's doing, but don't lose sleep over, a little hiccup in the market. Just think of this. The stock market is you walking up a mountain while using a yo-yo. So the yo-yo is the actual, day-to-day volatility in the stock market, but over the next 30 years, you're walking up this this mountain that is the stock market. Over time, and I'm supposed to give this disclaimer, so here we go. But historical performance doesn't indicate anything future. But if we look over the course of the stock market, 7 or 8 out of 10 years are in the positive. 2 out of 3 out of 10 years are in the negative. So don't let that short-term volatility, not keep you from climbing up that mountain. The last thing that I'll mention in the what else do I need to know, and then if there's a question or two, we can surely do that, is there's going to be different types of retirement accounts that people are going to talk about over time. There's going to be different types of insurances that people are going to talk about over time. Term life insurance versus permanent life insurance. Long-term disability insurance versus short-term disability insurance. Roth retirement accounts versus traditional retirement accounts. Rollover retirement accounts versus 401ks. All of that is in the financial planning world and scope. And if you don't know what that means, don't sign anything. There are people in, every industry has people that can use industry jargon and, try to twist people's arms into doing something that maybe isn't in the best interest of that person. So before you sign something, make sure that you have someone that can educate you, or do your own, do your own education on whatever that is, because like I said, it's not life and death with these decisions, but it could be impactful. That could be the difference between this sum of money versus, a lower sum of money. And there are things that you need to make sure that you're educated on, because at the end of the day, it's yours. It's your money. It's your financial well-being. And so, educate yourself. Don't just take somebody's word that you saw, in a radio, on a billboard or in a radio commercial, or, that your friend at a wedding told you needed to call this person. Do your own education. Make sure that you have a good relationship. If you're not going to do it on your own, make sure you have a good relationship with someone that, you've learned to know, like, and trust, that helps to educate you and teach you about your, your financial well-being, versus just trying to, sell you something and make you sign on the dotted lines real quick. So I know it's a lot of information, and again, I'm not expecting you to be able to rehash everything. And you go to the next slide. I think we're done. Okay, yeah. So I'm not asking you to rehash everything that I just said, but hopefully there's some things that you picked up on that, when in a certain situation, you'll remember. I'm happy to answer any questions that we might have here. This whole Zoom thing's kind of weird, because I've literally been talking to myself for about 35 minutes, looking at my own head. So if there's anybody that has any questions, I know we've got about 2 or 3 minutes, I think, at this point. I'm happy to answer those. Let's see. And if not, I'll kind of turn it, if there's no questions, I'll kind of turn it over to Katie to kind of run the dismissal or conclusion, or however we want to do this.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I personally had a question, just as I was thinking through the things for myself. I think and conversations that I've had as a senior with some of my friends, I think that some of this seems really daunting, as, some people have made budgets for their part-time jobs or something like that throughout college, as I know that I have. But I guess what would you say to the future graduate who is a bit afraid? A lot of it seems a bit overwhelming. There's a lot to figure out, a lot to think through, a lot to, like you said, educate yourself on. What would you say to that person?
Sure. So two things. The first thing that I would do is if you have no idea where your money's going, I would look, and I think most people nowadays either use a debit card or some sort of a payment, app and everything's trackable. So figure out where you're spending your money and, look back over the last 2 months, the last 4 months and say, okay, I've spent this much money on, eating out and this much money on gas and this much money on groceries and this much money on coffee or whatever. That at least gets you an idea of where your money is going. The second thing is ask questions because, there's people in every industry that is more than willing to answer those questions at no charge. I think that sometimes our industry gets a bad reputation of, I have to have six figures worth of money to be able to talk to that person. And that's not the case. I've done it for, some student athletes at USC that are graduates. I've done it for, students at USC. I'm happy to, if I can help, educate anybody in the financial space, I'm happy to do that. And I would hope that a lot of people in the alumni network would be able to give that type of information as well. So ask questions. Don't believe everything that Facebook or that Google says about what you need or what you should have. I would get second and third opinions. The phrase that I always like when I'm talking to clients is measure 2 times, measure 3 times before you cut. Measure twice before you cut because there are some things that you want to make sure that you have all the information that you need before you make that decision. So hopefully that helps answer the question.
Yes, thank you so much. We have one question in the chat from Gracie Jane. She says, as a sophomore in college, what action should I take to stay on the right track towards financial stability, considering she definitely doesn't have an income at the moment?
Okay, great question. So one of the things is so even though you don't have an income right now, doesn't mean you have to take on crazy amounts of additional debt. So, some practical stuff is when you go to Target or when you go to, whatever places, you shop at, don't let them talk you into getting a store credit card. I know that they make it sound super great that you get a X amount of discount and this, that, and the other, but that just adds another, potential debt source to your financial life. Be cognizant of where you're spending money. The question didn't say, how are you able to function? I don't know if financially, I don't know if, parents are helping or what expenses you have right now that you may not have any, but just be present and be disciplined on, where money is going, where that cash flow is going. And then when you get to where you're actually earning an income, you already have the groundwork laid. And now it's just, okay, I've already laid the groundwork. Now actually it's time to do this with real money. So hopefully that helps. Anything else?
It does not look like it, but thank you so much, Jay, for your insight and your help. And I believe that there might be follow-up questions later. So maybe if you could give a contact or something like that to reach out, and then we'll have a little break before our next speaker.
Yeah, I think, let's see. I'll put my contact here in the chat. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And then maybe Haven, I'm sure has all of my contact as well. Haven, feel free to send my information to whoever may need it. So, all right, there's the email and phone number. And so yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you all so much for having me.
Great. We're going to take a few minutes for a break before we hear from Tim Bryson on the virtual job search. So just take a few minutes to yourself, and then we'll get back to you. All right, everyone. Welcome back as we enter our next segment with Tim Bryson. I'm just going to give a little intro for him and just tell you a bit about him. So Tim is the founder and president of Walk with TFB LLC. He is a highly praised keynote speaker, leader, and consultant. Tim gained expertise through his experience as an active student leader and educator, and he learned many aspects of leadership, vision, and holistic well-being as a former D1 student athlete, certified athletic trainer, and NCAA postgraduate intern. However, his most powerful experience of shared vision, creating positive change, was being elected the first Black and NPHC president of the Fraternal Council at the University of South Carolina. Tim has been blessed to speak with hundreds of students on the topics of purpose-driven leadership, career readiness, and accountability and self-governance. He has spoken on a number of regional and national platforms, including the Southeastern Panhellenic Conference, College Sport Research Institute Annual Conference, and the National Association of, I must have not included that in our intro, but maybe Tim can fill in the blanks for me. But we're going to welcome him today, and especially so important during this time. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie, so much. And thank you, Haven, as well as the Alumni Association, for inviting me to present on such an important topic right now, not just during 2020, not just during COVID-19, but for any Carolina graduate who's looking to pursue and secure a job when they graduate. So we'll go to our next slide. Just to give an overview of what to expect during this presentation. Number one, again, Katie read the bio, but whose man is this? Like, who is Tim Bryson, and why are we here? We'll talk about the search itself, right? That's why we're here. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself, but really address this question that we know is in every single interview at some point. I did some research as a millennial, and then I'll answer any questions, comments, or feedback that we have today. So going to our next slide, I want to first by telling y'all more about who I am, really my experience at South Carolina. So again, I'm a proud South Carolina graduate, class of 2016. And as you see on the screen, from both, First Night Carolina on the bottom left, to winning Step Show, to becoming Homecoming King, being involved with intramural sports. Like, I did everything I could possibly do at South Carolina. And I mentioned that not just to encourage you all, if you have not and you still have time to get involved, to definitely do so. But these experiences provided the foundation for me to pursue my own job search, leaving South Carolina, but also in my current role now. As we go to our next slide, since graduating from South Carolina, I've done a lot of different things, a lot of cool things, I think, that again have helped inform who I am, but also where we're going and what I'll share today. Since graduating, I got my master's at Ohio State in higher ed and student affairs. I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Maryland. But most importantly, I'm the program director for student athlete career development at the University of Maryland as well. And so thinking about career search, job search, internships, anything career related, I get to do that day to day in my current role. Our next slide is to really just bring us back center to COVID-19. I think over the last 8 months, we throw out COVID, or we have different names for, like the Rona or Miss Rona, right? But at the end of the day, we're still in the middle, in the heart of a global health crisis, like a global health pandemic. So as you see on the screen, this is a screenshot that I took from yesterday, but there's been 9.58 million cases, over 230,000 deaths due to this virus. And I bring this to our attention, not just to, again, center us back to what's going on in our world right now, but to say that everyone has been affected by COVID-19. Employers, applicants, everyone, sports scene, everyone's been affected by this. But I say this as we go to our next slide as well, to say that the three things I want us to remember throughout this presentation is to practice radical self-care, practice radical self-love, but most importantly, control what you can control. That's the biggest thing that I can say. One of the biggest things that I'll say throughout today is that we can't control anything else but our own actions and our own decisions as we do search for these jobs. And that's for whether you're a graduating senior, both either this semester or next semester, or even an underclassman who will be on the job search, obviously that's been affected by COVID-19 as well. So why are we here? Our next slide. So the biggest thing that I think people need to answer, right, is this question about what are you interested in? When you're going on the job search, it's not good to say, like, I just want to get experience, what you see at the bottom of the screen. For someone who's hiring, right, or someone who wants to help or, help you on your job search, we need to be more specific, not in regards to what positions we're interested in, but the responsibilities. And I say responsibilities because, for those who are interested in marketing and communications, you can do that in virtually any career industry, whether that's in sport, healthcare, or corporate, nonprofit, government agencies. You can do marketing and comm anywhere. But what responsibilities do you want to hold in this job? Because that can then open yourself up to being more flexible to different opportunities that may present themselves as you graduate. The next thing, right? Are there specific companies, organizations, or agencies that you're interested in as well? If so, let's begin to network and let's begin to connect with them now, as opposed to waiting until you waiting until you apply for those positions. Geographic location. So we know, especially with the virtual job setting right now, a lot more companies and organizations are open to remote opportunities. But if there is a specific region that you want to be in, we got to go to that region, right? We got to find the companies. We got to do the work on the front end, right? Be proactive to get us situated to become more competitive in that search. Of course, you need to write down your negotiables and non-negotiables, and I want to emphasize writing that down, right? I think we have it in our head a lot of times, but legit writing it down makes it real. So one non-negotiable for me is that there's no way I can live north of DC. I don't like the cold. I went to school in South Carolina. I'm from Ohio for a reason. And so that's one of my non-negotiables. So that influences like what I look for in my search, but also what I'll accept as I'm applying. And last but not least, especially during COVID, there may not be this perfect job or this dream job that you're interested in, but what job would you accept? What job would you secure that will prepare you for what's next, right? So especially we need to look 2 steps ahead, if not 3 steps ahead, to think about like what can propel or what can pivot you into a new opportunity that may more so align with your purpose, passion, and vision. Next slide, Haven. So I couldn't put network on this screen more times than I did, unless I made the font smaller. But this is the biggest part of the job search during COVID-19. I have it on a future slide as well, but the 2 biggest things you can do, if you don't remember anything else from what I say today, first and foremost, cultivate relationships with employers, right? Number 1, cultivate relationships with employers. Number 2, refine and build your skills, whether that's new skills, old skills you need to refresh on, but skill building and relationship building are the 2 biggest things you can do right now during COVID. Why, you may ask? What recruiters are doing right now, right? Everyone's been affected, as I mentioned before. But when their searches start to open back up again, or as they continue to search even now, they're not going to people that apply through this random online portal on their company website. They're going to who they know. And so as we switch to the next slide, all of us have heard this phrase at some point, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know, and we get that. But our next slide really, I think, defines what we really need to focus on right now, right? It's not who you know, it's who knows you, which is a crucial pivot, if I may say so myself, that we have a responsibility to put ourselves in positions, to put ourselves in environments to where people know us. And we can do that proactively, and I'll share that in just a second. But more importantly, it is what you know. And it's something that one of my mentors told me this summer when I was going through this presentation. She was like, yo, like, it's yes, you need to make sure people know you, but you also need to make sure that you know what you know, right? Like you can't be applying for social media jobs but not know how to use Twitter or TikTok at this point. And so again, what are you doing to continue to build your skills, expand your knowledge base, so that when those people do know you, you can be able to explain that in a way that makes sense, but also would add value to the organization. So who knows you as we move forward is really key on connecting with industry professionals. So we click our next slide. And one of the biggest things I tell people is like, if you want to work in sport, like where are the sport professionals located? If you want to work in tech, like where are the tech professionals located? And that's our next slide. Again, the onus is on us, right? Go meet them, find out where they are, and then go meet them. And you'll see as Haven clicks again, like there's a lot of what happens with in our own search is that there's a lot of different platforms we can use to find our employers, whether that's LinkedIn, whether that's Instagram, whether that's Twitter, whether that's email, whether that's Google, YouTube, Foursquare. You see everything on the screen now. We have to go to where our employers are located. Because again, yes, people are still recruiting. Yes, jobs are still hiring right now. It looks a lot different, but if we can take the onus and we can be proactive to put ourselves in position where we're right in front of them and can connect with them prior to our application being submitted, our job application then becomes an expectation and not a surprise. And what you want to do, what we want to do when we're applying for these jobs is to ensure that when we apply, that the person, the interview team, the search committee on the other side, they know it's coming, right? It's not a surprise. And so that way they pull it from the application of whatever, 100, 200, 300, and can read it with more attention to then bring you into the interview. One of the other ways we can do this as far as getting to know our industry professionals is informational interviews, which is on the next slide. One thing about informational interviews I think is crucially important is that this can be, and oftentimes is, your first impression to these organizations and these companies. But more importantly, this is the interview before the interview. Informational interviews, there's really a no loss, result, right? Like you're connecting with them to learn more about the job, about the company, to learn more about the industry. But an informational interview is not your opportunity to ask, are you hiring, right? As you see the third bullet, the purpose of informational interview is to learn. Learn everything you can about that person's story, about the organization's history, current practices and procedures the organization has going on at this current moment. But really to use those 30 minutes, because most of them are 30 minutes, some may be shorter, like 15, some may be longer, closer to an hour. But use those 15 minutes to an hour to learn. To conduct these informational interviews, you have to first identify the influencers. So whether that's, again, those recruiters, alums, current students, as I said before, using digital platforms like LinkedIn and social media. But I think the biggest thing is that you can use these people to ask them to connect you to people in the network that you want to be a part of. So for example, if you're interested in working at the NCA, right, which is where I worked, you can contact me right on LinkedIn, social, on my website and say, yo, Tim, you spoke at, the virtual alumni conference. Could you connect me to someone at the NCA so I can learn more about postgraduate internship opportunities? And the answer will be yes, hands down. But if you do not have a connection, right, if you don't have a plug in the organization, blind emails work just as well. Before you send the email, I strongly encourage you to create an email signature, especially with undergraduate students. That's not expected by employers. So if you do have one, it definitely stands out. But the subject line is also crucially important as well. And I'll be happy to answer any questions about that as we move forward. But last but not least, again, follow up and follow through on anything that was discussed in that informational interview. And of course, please send a thank you email. Again, most people don't, but it truly does mean a lot to the person you're speaking to about their job. So a lot of the feedback right now that we've heard, not just from students, but also just, on social as well, is that there are not jobs available due to COVID-19. And I guess perfect timing suggests this week I was in several meetings where this was disproved a lot. To be frank with you all, there are a lot of employers who contacted our career center in Maryland to say like, yo, like, can you help us find students to apply for these open jobs? Because no one's applying. And that was a shock to me, number one. But I think what that says is that we get the self-defeatist attitude, and think that there are not jobs available when in fact there are. But we cannot accept a job if we don't apply for the job. And so I would strongly encourage you to legitimately apply for the roles that are open. Many people aren't applying for several different reasons, but as you go to the next slide, Haven, you have nothing to lose. I'm a Steph Curry fan, but I love LeBron more. But shoot your shot with these opportunities. If you see a job has 3 years of experience and you only have, 1 of experience, still apply. Because again, people aren't applying for jobs that are open because they have this idea that jobs are not available. And in fact, they are. One of the things, as we know, going into the next slide, is application materials, right? So of course, a resume, a cover letter, supplemental documents. These are all things that are required. And I'm not going to go over this because it's pretty self-explanatory at this point, but I also strongly encourage you to connect with the Career Center at South Carolina to get help as well. But I will highlight, read the job description. Read the job description and tailor your resume, tailor your cover letter to address what's in the job description. Now, do not just copy and paste the cover letter. Do not just copy and paste a resume to every job you apply for. Really tailor it to the position or an organization that you're looking to be employed at. So our next slide. One of the biggest questions we know comes in interviews, right, is tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself, why you're interested in this job. Tell me about yourself and, what makes it the right fit for you at this point in your career. And I hate this question. And I really wanted to focus on storytelling instead of, telling someone about yourself. Because when we start to tell someone about ourselves, the first question I know we always ask is like, what do you want to know? Like, where do you want me to start? Like where I grew up or like my South Carolina experience? Like where? No. Just our job is to tell a story when that question is asked. Yes, they're going to ask this question, but when they ask this question, you want to focus on your story. And I'm going to break that down in just a second. Your story on our next slide is not an elevator pitch. I hate elevator pitches so much. I despise them. It's not an elevator pitch. But the elevator pitch and the purpose of elevator pitch is kind of twofold as we move forward in our next slide, Haven. We know that an elevator pitch is our opportunity to share more about who we are, why we're interested. And we may have seen on our next slide, different things from Google, right? Now, all these pictures are pulled from Google about what an elevator pitch should include, right? So it should be 1 minute, or it's a story or it's a statement that you should be able to explain if you got on an elevator with someone and went up 10 floors, whatever. Like we've seen these like cliche examples of like what an elevator pitch is. And some of y'all are like, yep, I know what that is. Cool. Others like look like the next slide, like Nick Young looking confused, like, you know, what are you talking about, Tim? But the purpose of an elevator pitch in general, right? In general, is our next slide, right? To survive in advance. The only thing you need to do in an elevator pitch is to continue the conversation either after your storytelling is over or after you meet said person, right? So if you were to meet someone in an elevator or you were to meet someone out, whatever, in an airport, you want to be able to continue to survive that conversation and advance the conversation to having another conversation after you leave that moment. That's the primary purpose, just like an interview. Survive in advance. Just get through that round in advance. And how we do that, again, is by storytelling. So I included on our next slide my favorite, one of my favorite movies of all time, Toy Story. And we see the definition at the top, right? An account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment. And quite frankly, like when they ask that question, right? Tell me about yourself, which again, that's our role to tell our story. That is your time, right? And I would argue your 2 to 3 minutes, not 30 seconds, but 2 to 3 minutes where you have the mic uninterrupted. And there are very few times in life, like literally life, where we can talk uninterrupted about ourselves. And so it's important that when we start talking for those, 2 to 3 minutes, 2 to 4 minutes, that we include everything we want the other person or the interview team to know about us so that the conversation continues. And again, I'm going to break this down for us in just a second. So the next slide, story time. We know we've all had story time in school growing up, whatever, probably kindergarten, if not, even in some classes in undergrad. But, we know stories have a beginning, middle, and end, right? Just like a paper. But your story, as you look forward to the next slide, is different than a beginning, middle, and end. And it answers these 3 questions. So number one, who are you? Haven, you can click for me real quick. Who are you? So this, you want to really mention your passion. Like, what are you passionate about? Now, what interests you? Again, we'll break this down. The second part you want to answer, part of your story, is like, what's your vision, right? Like, what do you want to see happen? What do you want to see happen? Like, where do you want to see occur as a result of you participating in this role, this organization, this company? But like, what is it? Like, what's your vision? And then the last question is like, why? So your purpose. That's your personal purpose. That's the purpose in which you're talking to the other person or the interview team. Again, answering this question, like, why are you here? Like, what's the purpose of this conversation? Like, why should we continue talking, or why should we continue interviewing you based on what you just said over the last 3 minutes? So we're going to break this down because I want us to leave today with at least a more defined story to tell when we're asked this question. And so, as I mentioned before, I will not be sharing my slides with you all, but I strongly encourage, if you do have either a computer, piece of paper, your phone, like open up the notes section, but to really start thinking about these things to be and start to practice, because again, you're going to be on the job search much sooner than later. So our next slide, which is passion, right? A strong and barely controllable emotion. So thinking about these questions on the screen, write down, think about and write down, what excites you. Again, this does not have to be related to your major. It does not need to be related to your desired career interest right now. Like legitimately, like what excites you as a person, right? What can you talk about for hours? What do others say? What do you talk about? And when you do, others say you may light up during the conversation. What do you do that you get so lost that you lose track of time? What inspires you? But just take a few seconds and write down what are you passionate about? Like genuinely, what are you passionate about that brings you enthusiastic enjoyment and joy? And again, this does not need to be related to your major or your desired career interest right now, but really start to write down what you're passionate about, because it's huge and that needs to be included in your story. Our next slide, Haven, is our vision. Our vision. So vision, again, the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. So I want you to write down, where are we going? If I were to walk with you, right? If I were to get in the car with you, where are we going, right? Like, what change do you want to see in the world? What change do you wish to be in our world? And that world can be local to Columbia. It can be local to the University of South Carolina, but it can also be global to North America, or other continents as well. This vision should be bold, courageous, and aspirational. And I always pull the "I Have a Dream" speech by Martin Luther King Jr. as one that is a exemplar vision to consider and use as a model. If you were to draw a perfect picture of the world, or again, your career industry, like healthcare, what's the perfect picture of healthcare that you want to create or paint? And this vision should be clear for both the future, but also our future as well. So again, this is a shared vision, not one that's a personal agenda. So again, take a few seconds and just start to write down, start to brainstorm, what is the vision you have for yourself, but also your career industry, your desired career industry right now? Because this will also be included in the story that you tell when they ask that antiquated question, tell me about yourself. Awesome. So our next slide. So we talked about our passion. We talked about our vision. And now it's this question about purpose. And I know when we start to talk about purpose, some people get, nervous about it. Some people get speechless about it. Some people get super excited about it. So I recognize that I'm trying to meet all of us at one spot, which may not be possible or feasible right now. But I think it's something that we definitely need to think about as we tell our story in these interview processes, but also on our social platforms. So purpose, right? The reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. So these are pretty meta questions, but again, we need to be able to think about this because it's going to help us stand out in our job search processes. But why are you on this earth? like what is the point of your life? What's your why? What's your life's intention or objective? But what's your personal, again, function, mission, aim, goal, objective, reason? Like, what is your purpose? Like, what is it about you that, what do you think you're on this earth for, right? Again, that can be related to your passion and vision. I think it should definitely be aligned. But what's your purpose? And so some of us may have a lot to write down right now. Some of us may need to think or spend more time thinking and reflecting on this even after this session is over. But again, just jot down some thoughts in regards to what your purpose is right now. Awesome. So if you click to the next slide, your story, as I said before, right? You're answering 3 questions: who, what, and why. But answering these questions about passion, vision, and purpose. So I'm going to share with you all my story, at least part of my story, to help us think about, what your story could look like, but also how you can frame your own story when answering this question about tell me about yourself. So next slide. Tim's story, right? My who. So my name is Tim Bryson, and I'm a Black millennial educator. I'm a native of Cincinnati and a product of South Carolina, where I've come to learn that faith, family, and vision are values that not only describe who I am, but also serve as my compass for where I'm going. So I share this one because, again, this is what I use in my own interviews when I'm interviewing places. But 2, this is much different than, tell me about yourself. And you start to jump in. Well, I was born in, Cincinnati, Ohio. I grew up, I went to this high school, and I went to my major. Like, it gets very linear, right? Our lives are not linear. So what can you share in that initial statement where that's coming, right? That hooks people in. So now I read this, I hook them in, and now I get to talk to them about my vision. So next slide, Haven. As a former college athlete and current podcaster, I believe in the power of education, sport, and culture. Yet, despite increasing diversity in higher education, there are still inequities in how we support marginalized student communities, such as international students and students with disabilities. I chose to pursue my PhD at Maryland to explore how I can create inclusive communities of belonging and change antiquated institutional policies to liberate all undeserved students. So some of y'all are like, damn, that's a lot. That's what, at least 2 paragraphs right there. Do I need to memorize that? Do I need to have that written down and read off of it? The answer is no, because these are all things that should be core to who you are. And you would be able to, it's going to come off the tongue much easier than you think when you're in the interview setting. But of course, it's only going to be easy if we spend time practicing these statements, right? And these responses to tell our story. So I talked about my passion, my vision, and then my purpose. So my purpose, right, my experience in higher education and college sport have informed my life's mission. I am confident that I was brought on this earth to help all people identify their passion, inspire vision, and walk in purpose. I look forward to walking with you to witness how we can create social change together. Boom, that's it. And then you always want to, I personally strongly recommend that when you get done asking it or, telling your story, flipping it back on them, right? Like, what about you? Like, what's your story? Now you're engaged in conversation. And we've heard a lot, like, make the interview a conversation. You want to make it a conversation. Okay, well, how do you do that? Ask them, like, yo, like, what's your story, right? Like, why USC? Why Carolina? And get them to start thinking about their own story, because then now you're in a conversation. Now you're in dialogue, which can become less intimidating when you're in an interview setting. It's important that I mention this, one, as practice, number one, but then two, storytelling is not just isolated to answering this question about tell me about yourself. So our next slide, I included screenshots of my personal Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn profile, where I'm able to, again, share my story, right? Like, this is the first impression. If someone were to Google my name, one of these three platforms are going to pop up. And as I just shared with you all before, right, I say I'm a Black millennial educator. And all of my profiles, you see that I put I'm a Black millennial educator in my profile. So when I'm asked this question in an interview and I say, like, yo, I'm a Black millennial educator, right? I've come to learn the faith, family, and vision, or values that guide who I am, but also where I'm going. They see that when they search my name, right? It's congruent. A couple other things I want to point out on this slide is that whatever, I know some of us may not have Instagram or Twitter or just social media in general, but you want to be consistent. I strongly recommend you're consistent in what you put so that people, they see you as someone who's congruent and not someone who switches things up based off a platform, but also based on the environment you're in as well. And you can do that in cool ways. And so I think there's a lot of creativity that can be done. But that's also another presentation. So if you have more questions about that, I'll be happy to answer at the end of this presentation. But lastly, Haven, as we click through, right, it's all about practice. Allen Iverson, y'all know this infamous or famous interview. It's all about practice. You got to practice, because it does not come easy. But there are definitely a lot of environments in which we can practice, as we click our next slide, that are separate from interview settings. So if you're attending a conference, networking event, you're at the grocery store, restaurant, planes, info interviews, committee meetings, gas stations, right? When someone says, like, yo, Alyssa, tell me about yourself, boom, that's your opportunity to tell your story. You may not have 2 to 3 minutes. That may be more of a 30 to 60 minute or 30 to 60 second, conversation, but like that's a prime moment to practice what you've been putting work in on the back end. Or if you're in if for some reason you find yourself in an airport, right? And they're like, yo, James, tell me about yourself. Like, where you going with? Boom. Talk to them. Get into your passion, get into your vision, get into your purpose, because you never know, and y'all have heard this, you never know who someone else knows in different spaces. As we close today, I want to highlight just interviews, just go through this pretty quickly, because again, y'all have heard some of this stuff, but I want to just make sure I might share for peace of mind. But do your research and research everything. Research social media, the company website, etc. The second bullet, right? Ask who's going to be in on your interview. So they say, like, yo, your interview's on, Friday, November 20th at 11 a.m. Question back is to be like, yo, like, can you share the names and positions of those who will be in on my interview? So that way you can research them as well. Because again, they will tell you if you ask, but some, for whatever reason, choose not to tell you, and that's totally okay as well. Prepare as if you're interviewing in person. So if you wear a suit in person, wear a suit at home. But you really want to get in the mindset, right? It's all about mindset to be able to interview. Bring questions for the interview team, but also the interviewer, if it's just one person. Think about your environment. So again, the internet, background, room temperature, quieter space. I know it's hard for people to get in super quiet spaces right now. Have fun, tell your story, of course, but then also send thank you emails to each and every interviewer who's on the call. Our next slide. Resources, right? Use the Career Center. That's probably one of the most, if not the most, underutilized spaces on a college campus. I'll say the Career Center and the Alumni Association. Not just because we're on the alumni program, but those are just, packed with information and resources and knowledge that we don't, at least I as a student, did not take advantage of, and I wish I did. Of course, the Alumni Association, social media, including LinkedIn. So if you do not have a LinkedIn, strongly encourage you to make one. I do want to shout out, I think it was Alyssa Morgan, who actually researched who I was when she saw my name pop up on the screen. And that's a prime example of how to conduct research on those that you're speaking with to get a better understanding of where they're coming from when they start talking. Utilize your family, friends, partners, strangers, Instagram followers. I've done that several times. One of my fun facts is that I've gotten every job I've had, including going to grad school, through social media. It was not through a formal job posting. It's through social media. I'm here to serve as a resource as well, but then also Google. Google is our friend, and I say that jokingly, but also very seriously, in that it can provide some information that none of us have either heard or have used before. But of course, take it with a grain of salt and use what makes sense for you. So as we close, I told you I did some millennial research. And so our next slide I put on my Instagram, what are some tips, insight, advice for those, job searching during COVID? And you read a plethora of different, well, not a plethora, at least 16 different responses right now. But a few I want to point out, right, is doing research on the spaces, understanding employers are also impacted by COVID. So being patient, which I think, again, goes back to controlling what you can control. Send follow-ups to check on the application, the status of your application. For those who are looking at different organizations, right, who are values congruent people, right, ask about their response to both COVID, but also the Black Lives Matter movement. Because again, you want to work in a space where you feel welcomed and where you feel respected. And I think that's a great question to ask at this time. But again, just a few responses from my Instagram followers that I think do provide some helpful information about how to search during COVID. So our last two slides, right? The next one, as I said before, practice radical self-care, radical self-love, and control what you can control. But the three biggest things: network, apply to the jobs that are open, and be able to start to practice and be able to share your story when asked that question. Tell me about yourself. As I said before, the last two things I will leave you all with is cultivate relationships with the people that you are connected with. And that's through, again, social media. That's through the Alumni Association. That's through the Career Center. It's through your peers. But also build and refine your skills throughout this time, because, again, it's going to come up much sooner than later when they start to ask, about what you know in these interview settings. So with that, I want to open it up. I think that's our last slide, Haven. So thank you so much, Haven, for being the MVP today. But open it up to any questions, comments, or feedback to help us job search during COVID-19. So thank y'all. Do you have any questions? Oh, take your time, Gracie Jane. Take your time, friend. Yes, good, James. So I'll answer this one first. So for those who do have social media, again, Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok at this point, my personal and professional advice is to change your @ name to something that is reflects who you are, right? I think gone are the days where it's like my Instagram name, my undergrad was Blue Juice, which is like a drink, right? But that's not my Instagram name now. Instagram name is Timothy F. Bryson. My Twitter is Timothy F. Bryson. So from a branding perspective, like, what do you want people, like, how do you want to be recognized and identified on digital platforms? And I think you can do that by being human, right? So if you're able to put your name, your full name in your title, great. If not, hit that underscore, that hyphen, and call it a day. But that's huge, because again, everyone is on social media at this point. And so if I'm applying to a job and I see West Hickman jumped on, I go straight to Google and I type in West Hickman Alumni Association, and whatever's pulled up, I start reading it. So if West Twitter pops up, I'm reading through his tweets. If his Instagram pops up and it's public, I'm looking at his posts, because those are moments and information you can then pull in the interview in ways that I think are creative, but also show that you did your research on who you're speaking with. Another thing about social media that I'll also mention is that if you are interviewing places and you notice, especially on LinkedIn, that someone went to Clemson, unfortunately, LOL, or someone went to Furman or somewhere, a different school, you can bring that into the conversation to, again, help connect and create dialogue, as opposed to being like a one-sided conversation. But again, I'm happy to talk more about that, James, if you have specific questions about your social media presence. If you just hit me up on, again, Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn, I'll put my stuff in the chat as well. And then Gracie Jane, do you have any additional advice on confidence or going into an interview? Yeah, so the biggest thing I would say is practice, yo. practice, 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 practice. The story I'll share today is a story that I literally tell myself, like driving to the gym, going on walks, walking around the house, like legit just practicing, saying it out loud, right? Saying it out loud, saying it out loud, saying it out loud. One thing I'll also say, even before I jumped on the call today, right? I think all of us should have either Zoom or WebEx access, or even, FaceTime if you have an Apple product. But like open up the video feature and like look at yourself on Zoom and start to practice answering those questions, because that'll also help with some confidence in regards to what you want to say when you get into the interview setting. But then last but not least, especially online, have a piece of paper or like a note card next to you. So if someone says something in an interview, of course you can write it down and refer to it. But if they ask you a question that you either don't know the answer to or need some more time thinking about, ask the interviewer to repeat the question. Their time, whatever the 10, 15 seconds it takes them to repeat the question gives you more time to think about what you want to say as well. Then the last thing I'll mention while it's on my mind is the STAR method. So I put that in the chat, but the STAR method is a great method to use in interviews. STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. So that can also help keep your answers pretty organized and keep us from rambling or talking in circles. So I hope that helps Gracie and James. Any additional question? I can say. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so I don't think anyone has figured that out. Gracie, Katie's, I don't know if you figured that out either. Like I don't know if you look in the camera, do you look here, do you look at yourself? I don't have an answer to that, but I will say that everyone is going through that, right? So I think as long as you're able to provide eye contact, especially with multiple people on the screen, right? I know I'm like highlighted right now because I'm talking. But if it's multiple people on the Zoom call, like looking at them while you're talking is great, but then also like naming them, right? So being like, if they were to ask, tell me about yourself, Tim, like, that's a great question, Katie. My name is Tim Bryson. I'm a Black millennial educator, right? You want to be able to pull them back into the conversation. I think you can do that by also identifying them by first name. But we're all trying to figure that out even 8 months later. So I don't have an exact answer for you. You're welcome, Gracie Jane. You're welcome. Well, I'll wait a couple more minutes for any additional questions. But again, I'll put my personal Instagram and Twitter in the chat. I'll also put my podcast, my business Instagram and Twitter on the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me on LinkedIn. If you send me an email, I'll put my email here. If you see my email, just put in the subject line that we talked or that we met on this Zoom. And again, happy to find some time to just chop it up more. It's all about job searches during COVID. But again, control what you can control. Please take care of yourself. And as always, go Cox. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you so much, Tim. I love that added "Go Cox" at the end of it.
Always, always, always.
I agree. It's so difficult. Do you look at the camera? Do you look at the person? I agree.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you for being so real and helpful and with all of your insights. So thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. Y'all be safe. Peace out.
Lastly, today, everyone, I know it's been a long morning, but it's been so good. We're going to hear from Wes Hickman, and Wes has served as the University of South Carolina Alumni Association CEO since the summer of 2019. And prior to his current role, he served as UofSC's Chief Communications Officer and Director of the Office of Communications and Public Affairs. And so we're going to hear from him to close this out today.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. I also, by the way, struggle with the where do you look when you're on a Zoom call or FaceTime or anything like that. I do try to look at the camera when I want to talk directly to the group. Sometimes I don't always follow through with that, but so if I deviate from that today, let me know. But that's what I try to do anyway. So Tim, thank you so much. Valuable information. I wish that I had somebody that could kind of provide some of that coaching to me when I was a senior. Some of those questions about confidence and preparation and all that type of thing. I mean, that's legitimate, right? And it does take practice. And so I think it's a great idea to look at yourself and kind of understand what it is that you look like as you're doing it. And then, appreciate Jay being with us this morning. Financial management advice, particularly as you're coming out of, I know a lot of you soon to be or soon to be graduates, and then some of you in grad school. For those of you that are in grad school, I will say that my biggest challenge with financial management came right after grad school, and trying to figure out how to live in a world where I had not only undergrad debt, but graduate school debt. How do you make that work when you're, in a first job? For me, I was living in a large city that was very expensive, and it was tough. And so I think, having some advice, some people you can turn to, within this Gamecock network is a tremendous benefit. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for being with us this morning. I know that, as you look to transition from whatever position you're in right now, whether it's undergrad or grad school, or even if you're a junior and you're still a little ways out from that, that transition can be a difficult one. And one of the objectives of the Alumni Association is to make sure that the Gamecock family, the Gamecock network, is here to support you. And that can happen in a lot of different ways. Obviously we have our clubs all over the country, 42 clubs around the country. We have a couple overseas as well. If you are moving into a city where there is a club, I would highly encourage you to get engaged with those individuals. They can help you not only figure out and navigate the landscape of the city that you've just moved into, but may be able to provide some of that professional advice, some of that personal advice that you may need as you're getting established. People like Jay, people like Tim that are willing to be there and answer questions and receive, contacts from young alums. That's a critical part of getting established. And then, the other thing that we really want to do is sort of grow our professional development programming, grow our mentorship opportunities. You'll be hearing a little bit more about a mentorship platform that we are establishing with the Career Center on campus that will allow current students to plug in with alums and get some of those mentorship opportunities, whether it's, just a phone call to talk about careers, or if it's a resume review, or maybe even a full-blown mentor-mentee relationship. It's really going to be up to the individuals. And then we'd love to expand that into alums working with alums, because, no matter where you are in your career, you always need somebody that you can turn to for advice. And so I think that's really the power of what the association can do for our Gamecock network. I mean, if you think about, 280,000 Columbia graduates, but more than 315,000 graduates of the university all over the country. 60% of those people live here in the state of South Carolina. So that leaves a lot of people all over the country, all over the world, that can be there for you as you are trying to get established. And the one thing I would just ask for all of you to consider is, as you're moving out into this next phase of your life, think about supporting us as an association. And a membership, for the first 3 years after you graduate is only $30 a year. But that $30 is what we use to help support club activities. It's what we use to help support our professional development programming. It's what we use to help support even our scholarship programs that help future students at USC. And so if you would keep us in mind, I know that money can be tight when you first get out of school, but we think that we provide a lot of great value for people's $30 investment. We provide access to a lot of different people, a lot of different programming, educational opportunities, and the all-important social activities, game watch parties, and things that our clubs do. So, if you would, appreciate you considering that, and then look for opportunities to help, to give of your time. And I think that's really an important part too. Is once we get this mentorship hub established, and you finish school and you're out in your first job and you say, hey, I'd love to really talk to somebody about what it's like to move to New York, that, is maybe grew up in South Carolina, really never left South Carolina, but is now looking to move to New York. What is that like? So let us know how you can help future graduates get established once you have done it yourself. And then there'll be more things too. You know, we want to invite y'all to travel with us as we look to grow a travel program and engage with Gamecocks all over the world. A lot of different opportunities that'll be coming from your alumni association. So be on the lookout for more information from us. And thank you so much for being with us today. I am happy to take any questions if anybody has any. You can throw them up in the chat. I don't know what you might be interested in knowing about the association or about me or any of our team, but happy to do it if that's helpful, Katie.
I'm not sure if we have any questions, but I will take the time to thank Haven for all that she's done today and just throughout my time with her in Garnet Circle. And you got a good one, Wes.
There's no question about it, y'all. If you don't know Haven, you're going to want to get to know her. She's going places. There she is. She's now on camera. She is absolutely one of our Rockstar team members and is responsible for all of our student and young alumni programming, and will no doubt be taking on more as she grows in her career with us. And absolutely a great way to plug in to what we're doing here at the association is to stay in touch with her.
Definitely.
Y'all are just making me blush. But definitely keep an eye out on all of our upcoming programming. You can always see more of our events that we're doing on uofscalumni.org/events.
Thank you, Hayden. Well, on that note, I think we can close out for today and say goodbye to everyone. But thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Wes, for your insights and sharing with us and being involved with SAA and Garnet Circle. And happy Friday. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.